They called him a murderer. They drove him out with torches and threats. 15 years later, Asher Blackridge returned to the town that destroyed him, not for revenge, but because he had nowhere else left to go. What he found in that frozen alley wasn't redemption. It was a half-dead woman clutching stolen secrets worth more than both their lives combined. Within hours, killers would come. Blood would stain the snow, and two people who'd lost everything would have to decide: run separately and die alone, or stand together against an empire built on lies. Stay with us until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this tale travels across the world. The Wyoming cold didn't give warnings, it just took. Asher Blackridge knew that better than most. He'd spent 15 years learning how things died in these mountains: cattle, hope, the foolish belief that a man's word meant something. The wind cut through his wool coat like it wasn't there, carrying snow that stung exposed skin and turned breath into white clouds that vanished before they fully formed. His horse, a gray gelding named Slate, picked its way down the mountain trail with the careful steps of an animal that understood consequences. One wrong placement, and they'd both be tumbling down a slope that didn't forgive mistakes. Asher let the reins hang loose. The horse had better sense than he did anyway. Below, Cedar Falls spread out like a bad memory, made of wood and stone. The town hadn't changed much. Same church steeple stabbing at the sky. Same cluster of buildings hunched against the wind like they were ashamed of themselves. Same lies, probably. Same people who'd decided one man's life was worth less than their comfort. Asher's jaw tightened. His left hand, the one missing 2 fingers from a sawmill accident 3 years back, flexed against the cold. He hadn't wanted to come back. For 15 years, he'd stayed away, building a life in the mountains that didn't require trust or explanations. A life where the only betrayals came from weather and wolves, both of which at least had the decency to be honest about wanting you dead. But winter had come early and hard. His supplies hadn't lasted. The last storm had buried his cabin under 4 feet of snow and killed half his cattle. Pride didn't fill an empty stomach. Principle didn't stop frostbite. So here he was, descending toward the place that had branded him a murderer and driven him out with nothing but the clothes on his back and a reputation soaked in someone else's blood. The trial had been 3 days long. The verdict took 20 minutes. Guilty. Never mind that he'd been 10 miles away when Thomas Garrett's throat got cut. Never mind that Garrett's own brother had gambling debts to half the territory. Never mind that the knife they'd found, conveniently placed in Asher's saddlebag, had been handled by so many people it could have belonged to anyone. Facts didn't matter when the town wanted someone to blame, and Asher Blackridge had always been convenient, too quiet, too solitary, too unwilling to play the social games that kept a man safe in civilized places. The judge had given him a choice: hang or get out and never come back. Asher had chosen breathing. Barely. Now riding down this same trail, he wondered if he'd made the right call. Sometimes survival was just slow dying with extra steps. Slate's ears flicked forward, the horse's muscles tensed beneath the saddle. Asher's hand moved to the rifle strapped to his saddle, fingers, what remained of them, finding the worn wood of the stock. His eyes scanned the tree line, looking for whatever had spooked the animal. Wolf, maybe. Or something worse. Then he saw it. Not in the trees. In the alley between Morrison's feed store and what used to be the old telegraph office. A figure. Small. Crumpled against the wall like discarded trash. Asher's first instinct was to keep riding. Not his problem. Not his town anymore. Whatever trouble had found that person, it wasn't his concern. But Slate had already stopped. The horse stood still, breath steaming, as if waiting for Asher to make a decision he didn't want to make. "Damn horse," Asher muttered. He swung down from the saddle, his boots crunching in snow that had been packed down by wagon wheels and foot traffic. The rifle came with him, held low but ready. The figure didn't move as he approached. Closer now, details emerged. Dark hair, matted with ice. Clothes too thin for this weather, some kind of silk fabric that belonged in a different climate, a different life. Hands wrapped around something, clutching it like salvation. A woman. Young. Asian features, though Asher had never been good at placing which part of that vast continent people came from. China, maybe. Or Japan. Did it matter? She was dying. That mattered. "Hey." His voice came out rougher than intended, scraped raw by cold and disuse. You alive? Her eyes opened, dark, almost black, filled with something that wasn't quite fear. Suspicion, maybe. Or exhaustion so deep that fear couldn't reach it anymore. She tried to speak. Her lips moved, cracked and bleeding from the cold, but no sound came out. That's when Asher saw what she was holding. Bread. A piece of frozen bread, hard as stone, clutched in both hands like it was worth more than gold. Something in his chest twisted. He recognized that grip, that desperation. He'd held things like that himself back when hunger had teeth and every moment was negotiation with death. When'd you last eat? He already knew the answer. Days, probably. Maybe longer. She stared at him. Her mouth opened again. This time, sound came, barely a whisper, shaped wrong, in a language he didn't speak. Asher glanced around. The street was empty, but that wouldn't last. Cedar Falls might be small, but it had eyes everywhere. People noticed things. People talked. People lied. He should walk away. Should mount Slate and ride to the general store, get his supplies, and get out before anyone remembered his face. This woman wasn't his responsibility. She was probably trouble, the kind that got people killed, but she was also dying in an alley, clutching frozen bread, and something about that image stuck in his throat like a bone. All right. He said it more to himself than her. Here's how this goes. I'm going to pick you up. You try to stab me or scream, and I'll drop you right back where I found you. Understood? She blinked. Once. He decided that counted as agreement. She weighed almost nothing. Lifting her was like picking up a bundle of sticks wrapped in silk. She didn't fight, didn't make a sound, just went rigid in his arms like she expected violence and was trying to prepare for it. Slate eyed them both with what Asher swore was judgment as he maneuvered the woman into the saddle. She swayed, nearly fell, and he had to grip her waist to keep her upright. Stay conscious, he ordered. I'm not chasing you if you fall off. Her eyes found his. For a moment, something passed between them, not understanding exactly. Recognition, maybe. The kind that happened between people who'd both stared at death and decided they weren't ready yet. Asher swung up behind her, one arm locked around her waist to keep her from sliding off. She flinched at the contact but didn't pull away. Couldn't, probably. Where are we going? The question came from behind them. Asher's blood turned to ice. He turned, slow, keeping one hand on the woman and the other near his rifle. A man stood at the alley entrance. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a deputy's star that caught what little light filtered through the gray sky. His face was weathered, mid-40s maybe, with the kind of hardness that came from making difficult decisions and sleeping fine afterward. Deputy Marcus Crane. He'd been one of the men at Asher's trial. Hadn't said much, just stood there with his arms crossed, while the prosecutor spun lies into legal fact. Passing through, Asher said. His voice was flat, empty of everything except the will to end this conversation fast. Crane's eyes moved from Asher to the woman, then back. That right? Could have sworn the judge told you never to set foot in Cedar Falls again. Could have sworn a lot of things got said that weren't true. Careful, Blackridge. Crane's hand rested on his pistol, casual-like, but the threat was clear. You already used up all your chances here. Wasn't asking for chances, just supplies. Then I'm gone. Crane studied them. His gaze lingered on the woman and something shifted in his expression. Not concern, calculation. Who's she? Nobody. Funny, nobody usually weighs something. Found her in the alley. Figured I'd drop her at the doctor's, then be on my way. Doc's not in town. Crane took a step closer. His boots were quiet in the snow. Left yesterday for a call up north. Won't be back till next week. Asher's jaw tightened. Then the church. Reverend don't take kindly to strangers, especially Chinese ones. Crane's smile didn't reach his eyes. You know how it is. People get nervous. The woman's body tensed against Asher. She didn't speak, probably didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. The threat. Fine. Asher shifted in the saddle. I'll take her with me. Not your concern. Everything in Cedar Falls is my concern. Crane's hand tightened on his pistol. Especially when convicted murderers show up carrying mysterious women through town. I'm not carrying her through town, I'm leaving. After you get your supplies. That's right. From Miller's store. Unless there's somewhere else. There isn't. Crane's smile widened. Which means you'll be staying at least an hour, maybe 2, depending on what you need. That's plenty of time for me to ask questions. Find out who this woman is, why she's dressed like she just walked out of a San Francisco parlor house, why she's clutching bread like it's the last meal she'll ever get. The woman's fingers dug into Asher's arm. Through the fabric of his coat, he felt her shaking, and it wasn't just from cold. She's starving, Asher said. That's all I know. That's all that matters. Maybe. Crane tilted his head. Or maybe she's running from something. Someone. Could be there's a reward for bringing her back. Could be you're inventing problems where there aren't any. Could be. But I'm still deputy, and you're still a man who shouldn't be here. Crane's voice dropped, losing the pretense of friendliness. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to dismount, you're going to hand her over, and you're going to get your supplies and leave before I decide to enforce that court order properly. Asher didn't move. And if I don't? Then I arrest you for violating your exile. Judge Weatherby might not be as generous this time. Hanging's quicker than starving in a cell, but not by much. The wind picked up, howling between buildings, throwing snow that stung exposed skin. Slate shifted beneath them, uneasy. Asher's mind raced. He could run, kick Slate into motion and trust the horse's speed to get them out of town before Crane could react. But running meant leaving without supplies, and Winter didn't negotiate. He'd die in the mountains within a week. He could fight. The rifle was within reach. Crane was fast, but Asher had spent 15 years learning to be faster. But killing a deputy, even in self-defense, would bring more trouble than he could handle. A whole territory's worth of trouble. Or he could comply. Hand over the woman, get his supplies, ride out, forget this ever happened. The woman's fingers tightened on his arm. Her head turned, slightly, and her eyes met his. She didn't speak, didn't beg, just looked at him with an expression that said she already knew how this would end. She'd been abandoned before, probably more times than she could count. Asher's jaw clenched. No, he said. Crane blinked. Excuse me? I said no. She's coming with me. Blackridge? You want to arrest me? Fine, do it. But she's not going anywhere except where I take her. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the wind and Slate's nervous breathing. Crane's face hardened. You're making a mistake. Probably. Wouldn't be my first. This one might be your last. I'll take my chances. For a long moment, neither man moved. The town held its breath, waiting. Then Crane stepped back. His hand left his pistol. You got till sundown, he said quietly. After that, I come looking, and when I do, I won't be asking nicely. Asher didn't respond. He turned Slate toward Miller's general store and urged the horse forward, the woman still pressed against him, her breathing shallow and quick. Behind them, Crane watched until they disappeared around the corner. Miller's general store smelled like coffee, tobacco, and old wood. The kind of smell that soaked into a place over decades and became part of its identity. Asher helped the woman down from Slate and half carried her through the door. A bell chimed overhead, cheerful, inappropriate. The warmth hit like a physical thing. After hours in the cold, it felt almost violent. The woman sagged against him, her legs barely supporting her weight. Well, I'll be damned. The voice came from behind the counter. Frank Miller, owner and proprietor for 30 years, stood with a rag in one hand and an expression of pure disbelief on his weathered face. Asher Blackridge, thought you were dead. Disappointed? Miller snorted. Nah, just surprised. Most folks who leave Cedar Falls don't come back, usually for good reason. I'm not staying. Smart man. Miller's eyes shifted to the woman. Who's your friend? Found her in an alley. And decided to adopt her? Decided she shouldn't freeze to death. Miller studied them both, then shrugged. Not my business. You need supplies? Everything. Flour, salt, coffee, dried meat, ammunition, whatever I can carry. That's a long list. Gonna take time. I've got till sundown. Crane? Crane. Miller nodded slowly. He give you trouble? Tried. But you're still here, so I'm guessing you didn't back down. A small smile crossed Miller's face. Some things don't change. While Miller gathered supplies, Asher guided the woman to a chair near the stove. She collapsed into it like her strings had been cut, still clutching that piece of frozen bread. You can let go of that now, Asher said. He pointed to the bread. I'll get you real food. She didn't respond, just stared at him with those dark eyes, waiting for the other shoe to drop. For the catch she knew was coming. Asher sighed. He crossed to where Miller kept the ready-made food, things travelers could eat without preparation. Dried apples, jerky, hard biscuits. He grabbed a handful of each and brought them back to her. Here, he held them out. Eat slow. Your stomach's probably forgotten what food is. She didn't take them. Her eyes moved from the food to his face, searching for something. It's not poisoned, Asher said. It's not a trick. You're hungry. This is food. That's all this is. Still, she hesitated. Then slowly, so slowly it was almost painful to watch, she released the frozen bread. Her hands, shaking from cold and weakness, reached for the dried apple slices. She ate like someone who expected the food to be yanked away any second. Quick, furtive bites, barely chewing, her eyes never leaving Asher's face. Slow down, he said. Nobody's taking it back. She didn't slow down. Asher let her eat. Shut. He turned to Miller, who was piling supplies on the counter with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. How much? Miller tallied in his head. $42. Could have been $35, but prices went up since you left. Everything goes up except what matters. Truth. Miller accepted the money Asher counted out, most of his remaining cash. You really taking her with you? Don't have much choice. You always have a choice, Asher. You're just the type who makes the hard ones. Maybe. Miller leaned on the counter, his voice dropping. Word of advice? Whatever you're planning, do it fast. Crane's not the only one who'll have questions about her. Meaning? Meaning there's been talk, last few weeks, about a Chinese woman who ran from the Baron's estate, stole something valuable supposedly. There's men looking for her, the kind who get paid to ask questions with their fists. Asher's blood chilled. The Baron. The name sat between them like a curse. Baron Magnus Drake. Land Baron, political puppet master, and the closest thing Wyoming had to royalty. He owned half the territory, ranches, mines, timber rights, water access. What he didn't own, he controlled through debts, favors, and well-placed threats. Crossing the Baron was like spitting into a wildfire. Stupid, painful, and ultimately fatal. She steal from him? Miller asked. I don't know. Found her half dead in an alley. That's all I know. Then I'd suggest you keep it that way. The less you know, the less you can tell if someone asks hard. Noted. Miller started packing the supplies into saddlebags. You got a plan? Get out of town, head back to the mountains, wait for spring. And her? Asher glanced at the woman. She'd finished the food and was now staring at the stove like she couldn't quite believe it existed. Haven't figured that part out yet. Well, figure it fast. Sundown's in 3 hours and Crane's not known for his patience. They were loading the last of the supplies onto Slate when the diner caught Asher's eye. Mabel's place. Still there, still serving food that was more grease than nutrition, but filled the stomach well enough. The woman needed more than dried apples and jerky. She needed real food, hot food, the kind that reminded a body it was still alive. Against his better judgment, Asher steered her toward the diner. The bell above the door chimed as they entered. The warmth was even thicker here, heavy with the smell of frying meat and fresh bread. A handful of customers occupied tables, ranch hands mostly, taking a break from the cold. Conversation stopped when they walked in. Asher felt the weight of every stare. Recognition rippled through the room like a stone dropped in still water. Murderer. The word hung unspoken, but Asher heard it anyway. He'd been hearing it for 15 years. Sit anywhere? Called a woman from behind the counter. Mabel herself, grayer than Asher remembered, but still carrying herself with the no-nonsense authority of someone who'd run a business through good times and bad. Asher chose a table in the back, positioning himself where he could see the door. Old habits. The woman, he really needed to figure out her name, sat across from him, her movements cautious, controlled. Mabel approached with coffee pot in hand. Well, hell, Asher Blackridge thought you'd have better sense than to show your face here. So did I. Yet here you are. Mabel poured coffee without asking. And with company, no less. She needs food. I can see that. Mabel studied the woman with the practiced eye of someone who'd fed hungry people for decades. Soup, that's what she needs. Something gentle till her stomach remembers how to work. Fine. And you? Same. Mabel nodded and left. The other customers had gone back to their meals, but Asher felt their awareness like static in the air. They were listening, watching. The woman's hands wrapped around the coffee cup Mabel had left. She didn't drink, just held it, absorbing the warmth. You got a name? Asher asked. She looked at him, said nothing. I'm Asher Blackridge. He pointed to himself, then to her. You. Her lips moved. Mei Lin. The words were soft, shaped strange but understandable. Mei Lin, Asher repeated. All right, that's a start. She tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. Then she spoke again, longer this time, in that language he didn't recognize. Chinese, he guessed. The sounds were clipped, tonal, nothing like any English he'd ever heard. I don't understand, Asher said. He shook his head. English. Little, she said. The word came slow, deliberate. Little English. That's more than I've got in Chinese. Something that might have been a smile flickered across her face. It died quick, but it had been there. The soup arrived. Beef broth with vegetables, steam rising in soft curls. Mei Lin stared at it like she didn't trust it. It's safe, Asher said. He picked up his own spoon, took a bite, swallowed. See? Not poison. She watched him for another moment. Then, with that same cautious deliberation, she picked up her spoon. The first bite made her eyes close. Relief, or maybe pain, Asher couldn't tell which, but she kept eating, slow and steady, like someone relearning a forgotten skill. They ate in silence. Around them, the diner's noise gradually returned, forks on plates, low conversation, someone laughing at a joke Asher didn't hear. Normal. Almost. Then the door opened. 3 men walked in. They didn't look like ranch hands. Their clothes were too clean, too expensive. Their boots didn't have the worn-in look of men who worked for a living. And they were armed. Not openly, guns hidden under coats, but Asher had spent enough time around violence to recognize it wearing civilian clothes. The lead man was tall, angular, with a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. His gaze swept the diner, methodical, searching. When his eyes found Mei Lin, they stopped. Asher's hand moved to his lap, where his pistol rested. The scarred man approached their table. His companions flanked him, blocking easy exits. Afternoon, the scarred man said. His voice was smooth, educated, wrong for this place. Mind if we join you? Yes, Asher said. The man smiled. That wasn't really a question. He pulled out a chair and sat. Up close, Asher could see the scar better. A knife wound, professionally done. The kind that was meant to send a message, not kill. My name is Silas Vance, the man said. I'm here on behalf of Baron Drake. Asher said nothing. We're looking for someone. Vance's eyes never left Mei Lin. A Chinese woman, young, wearing silk clothing, stolen property of the Baron's estate. Mei Lin had gone completely still. Her spoon hovered above her soup, frozen. Don't know anything about that, Asher said. No. Vance leaned back. Because the woman sitting across from you matches that description perfectly. Lots of women in the world. Not many in Cedar Falls, especially not ones wearing Shanghai silk. Asher's jaw tightened. She's with me. Is she? Vance's smile didn't waver. And you are? Nobody you need to know. That's where you're wrong, Mr. Blackridge. Recognition flashed across Vance's face. Ah, the murderer. I've heard stories about you. I'm sure you have. The Baron has no quarrel with you, Mr. Blackridge. Our business is with the woman. She stole documents, property. The Baron simply wants what belongs to him returned. She doesn't look like property to me. Vance's smile thinned. You misunderstand. The documents are property. The woman is a thief. One who will face justice. Funny kind of justice that involves 3 armed men hunting one starving woman. The Baron is thorough. The Baron's a thief himself. The words dropped into silence. Around the diner, conversation died. Mabel stopped pouring coffee. Vance's smile vanished. Careful, Mr. Blackridge. Slander is a serious accusation. So's murder. I've been accused of worse. Vance stood. His hand moved to his coat where Asher knew a gun waited. I'll give you one chance, Vance said quietly. Walk away. Leave the woman. Forget this encounter. The Baron has no interest in complicating your life. My life's already complicated. It can get worse. It usually does. Asher stood as well. His hand didn't move to his gun. Not yet. But the threat was there, clear as daylight. She's not going with you, Asher said. Then you're making an enemy you can't afford. I'll manage. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. The diner held its breath. Then Vance stepped back. Very well, we'll remember this conversation, Mr. Blackridge. I'm sure you will. Vance and his men left. The bell chimed cheerfully as the door closed behind them. Asher sat back down. His hands were steady. Years of practice made sure of that, but his pulse hammered. Across from him, Mei Lin's eyes were wide. Scared, but something else too. Surprise, maybe. Like she hadn't expected anyone to stand between her and those men. You need to tell me what those documents are, Asher said quietly. Mei Lin's hands trembled. She set down her spoon. When she spoke, her English was broken, halting, but understandable. Papers, land, baron, steal, many people. Take homes, take land. She gestured helplessly, searching for words she didn't have. I see. I take. Proof. Proof of what? Proof he... lie. Cheat. Hurt people. Asher's stomach sank. Where are these papers now? Mei Lin touched her chest. Not her heart. Her clothing. Hidden somewhere in the folds of that silk dress. Christ, Asher muttered. You're carrying them? She nodded. Do you have any idea what kind of trouble? He stopped. Of course she did. She'd been starving in an alley, hunted by armed men, clutching frozen bread like it was her last hope. She knew exactly what kind of trouble she was in. Why didn't you just give them back? Asher asked. Why run? Mei Lin's eyes hardened. When she spoke, her voice was firm despite the broken English. My father. Baron, take his land. Father, die. She touched her heart. Mother die. Brother die. All die because Baron want land. Understanding settled over Asher like cold water. This wasn't about theft. It was about revenge. Justice. The kind that never came through proper channels because the people in charge were the ones doing the stealing. He knew that feeling. He'd lived it for 15 years. All right, Asher said. He stood, dropping coins on the table for the meal. We need to leave, now. Mei Lin didn't argue. She rose, still unsteady, and followed him toward the door. Mabel called out as they left. Asher? He stopped. Whatever you're planning, Mabel said quietly, be smart about it. The Baron doesn't forgive, and he never forgets. Neither do I, Asher said. They walked out into the cold. The sun was lower now, touching the horizon. Maybe 2 hours till sundown, 2 hours before Crane came looking. Asher helped Mei Lin onto Slate. The horse shifted, sensing tension. Where we go? Mei Lin asked. Asher swung up behind her. The mountains, my cabin. It's remote, defensible. We can figure out the rest from there. They follow. Probably. You help me. Why? It was a fair question. Asher didn't have a good answer. Maybe he was tired of running. Maybe seeing someone else's injustice reminded him too much of his own. Maybe he was just stupid. Because nobody else will, he said finally. Mei Lin turned, looking at him over her shoulder. Her eyes searched his face, looking for lies, for the catch, for the betrayal she expected. She didn't find it. Thank you, she said quietly. Asher grunted and urged Slate into motion. They rode through Cedar Falls as the sun bled red across the western sky, shadows growing long and hungry. Behind them, in the diner's window, Silas Vance watched them go. He didn't move, didn't follow. He didn't need to. He knew where they were going. The mountains only had so many trails, and winter narrowed the options even further. The Baron would be pleased to know his property had been located, and Silas Vance always delivered. The temperature dropped as they climbed. Night came fast in the mountains, and with it came cold that didn't care about fairness or second chances. Asher pushed Slate hard, knowing the horse's limits but trusting its strength. They needed distance, needed to be far enough that casual pursuit would think twice. Maylin said nothing. She leaned against him, drawing what warmth she could from contact, her breathing steady but shallow. Behind them, Cedar Falls disappeared into darkness. No lights followed, no shouts, no gunshots. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. Asher knew how hunting worked. You didn't chase prey in the dark. You waited, planned, let them think they'd escaped. Then you struck when they'd lowered their guard. "How far?" Maylin asked. Her voice was quiet, nearly lost to the wind. 3 hours, maybe 4. "You live alone?" 15 years. "No wife? No family?" "No." "Why?" Asher didn't answer immediately. The question sat between them, heavy with implications. "Hard to have family when everyone thinks you're a murderer," he said finally. Maylin was quiet for a moment. Then, "You kill man?" "No." "But they say you did." "They say a lot of things. Most of them are lies." "I believe you." The words surprised him. "Why?" "Killer. Not save me. Killer leave me die in alley. Maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe." He could hear the small smile in her voice. "But not killer." They rode on. The trail grew steeper, rockier. Snow deepened. Slate's breathing came harder, but the horse didn't falter. Above them, stars emerged, hard points of light in a black sky. The moon rose, half full, casting everything in shades of silver and shadow. Beautiful. Deadly. Indifferent to human struggle. Asher had learned to love these mountains precisely because they didn't care. They didn't judge. They just existed, vast and ancient and honest about their dangers. But tonight, that indifference felt like abandonment. "Asher?" Maylin's voice was softer now, tired. "Yeah? If they come, you leave me. Save yourself." "No." "Why not?" "Because that's not how this works." "How what works?" "This." He gestured vaguely, encompassing everything. Her, him, the choice he'd made in that alley. "Once I decide something, I don't quit halfway." "Even if it kill you?" "Especially then." She was quiet again, then so soft he almost missed it. "Foolish man." "Probably. But good fool." Asher didn't respond. He didn't know what to say to that. They climbed higher. The trees thickened, providing some shelter from the wind. The trail became familiar. Asher had ridden it countless times over the years. Almost home. Then Slate's ears flattened. The horse stopped, muscles bunching, head swinging toward the tree line. Asher's hand found his rifle. "What is it?" Slate stamped, nervous. The horse's nostrils flared, testing the air. Then Asher heard it. Voices. Distant, but clear. Men. Multiple. Coming up the trail behind them. "Hold on," Asher said. He kicked Slate into motion, abandoning caution for speed. The horse surged forward, hooves throwing snow. Behind them, the voices grew closer, organized, coordinated, not random travelers. Hunters. The cabin appeared ahead, a dark shape against darker trees, smoke from the banked fire barely visible against the night sky. Asher pulled Slate to a stop. He swung down, then helped Maylin dismount. She stumbled, legs weak from hours of riding, and he caught her. "Inside," he ordered. "Bar the door. Don't open it unless you hear my voice." "Where you go?" "To make sure they think twice about following." He started to turn. Her hand caught his arm. "Asher, don't die." He looked at her. In the moonlight, her face was pale, exhausted, but her eyes were fierce. "Wasn't planning on it," he said. He grabbed his rifle and extra ammunition from the saddlebags. Then he moved toward the tree line, finding a position with good sight lines and cover. Below, lights appeared, torches, 5 of them, maybe 6, moving methodically up the trail. Vance hadn't wasted time. Asher settled into position, rifle ready. His breath steamed in the cold air. His missing fingers ached. They always did in this weather. Phantom pain from parts that didn't exist anymore. The lights came closer. Asher waited. Patience was a hunter's virtue. Rush, and you revealed your position. Miss, and you lost the advantage. The first figure emerged from the trees. Silas Vance, scar stark in the torchlight. Behind him, 5 more men. Armed, professional. They stopped at the base of the final slope, looking up at the cabin. "Mr. Blackridge!" Vance's voice carried clear through the cold air. "We know you're here. We know you have the woman." Asher didn't answer. "The Baron is willing to be reasonable," Vance continued. "Return the woman and the documents. No harm will come to you. You have my word." Still, Asher said nothing. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Mr. Blackridge. But it will be done. Tonight, one way or another." Asher raised his rifle. He found Vance in the sight. An easy shot, center mass. Maybe 2 seconds between thought and execution. But killing Vance wouldn't solve anything. It would just bring more men, more trouble. The Baron's reach was long. Instead, Asher shifted his aim. He fired. The shot echoed across the mountains. One of the torches exploded, fire and sparks spraying. Men scattered, diving for cover. When the echo faded, Asher's voice carried down. "She stays. You leave. That's the only deal on the table." Silence. Then Vance's laugh, sharp and humorless. "Brave, Mr. Blackridge, but foolish. There are 6 of us, 1 of you, and we know you're running low on ammunition. Miller told us what you bought." Asher's jaw clenched. Of course Miller had talked. Fear made informants of everyone. "6 now," Asher called back. "But it only takes 1 bullet. Question is, which one of you wants to be first?" Another pause. Asher could see them conferring, shadows moving in the torchlight. Then Vance spoke again. "We'll give you till dawn. Think about it, Mr. Blackridge. Think about whether one woman is worth dying for, worth losing everything for." The lights withdrew, slowly, deliberately, not fleeing, regrouping. Asher waited until they disappeared completely. Then he waited longer, watching for tricks. Finally, he moved back to the cabin. He knocked 3 times, a signal. The door opened. Mei Lin stood there, pale but steady. "They're gone," Asher said. "For now." "For now." He came inside. The cabin was small, 1 room, barely furnished. A fireplace, a bed, a table, everything a man needed to survive alone. Mei Lin had stoked the fire. Heat radiated from it, turning the space almost comfortable. Asher barred the door. He checked the window shutters, made sure the rifle was loaded, counted his ammunition, 23 bullets, against 6 men. Not great odds. Mei Lin watched him. "What we do?" Asher looked at her, really looked at her. She was small, exhausted, probably still half-starved despite the food. She had nothing except stolen documents and determination. She should have been easy to sacrifice, easy to trade for safety, but when he looked at her, he didn't see property or problems. He saw someone who'd lost everything and still chose to fight. He saw himself, 15 years ago, standing in a courtroom while lies became truth. "We fight," he said, "against 6 men, against however many they send. Why? Because they're wrong, and you're right, and sometimes that matters." Mei Lin's eyes glistened. She looked away quickly, but not before he saw. "You strange man, Asher Blackridge." "So I've been told." She moved to the fire, holding her hands toward the warmth. In the flickering light, she looked younger than he'd thought. 20, maybe. 21. Too young to have lost so much. Too young to be this alone. "Tell me about the documents," Asher said. Mei Lin reached into her dress. From somewhere in the silk folds, she produced a leather folder. She handed it to him. Inside were papers. Deeds, contracts, legal documents. Asher's reading wasn't great. He'd had maybe 4 years of formal schooling, but he understood enough. Land transfers. All signed by Baron Magnus Drake. All dated within the last 5 years. And all for properties that had supposedly been abandoned. Owners dead or missing. No heirs. Legally available for claim. Except Asher recognized some of the names. Thomas Garrett, the man he'd supposedly murdered. The Chens. a Chinese family who'd worked a small farm north of town, the Johnsons, the Ramirez family, the Blackwoods, all dead under convenient circumstances, all their land absorbed by the Baron. Jesus, Asher whispered. You see, Maylin said. He kill, take land, make it legal. These are worth more than gold. With these you could prove nothing, Maylin interrupted. No court listened to Chinese girl. No judge stop Baron. Papers just make him angry. Make him hunt me. She was right. Asher knew it. The law protected people like Baron Drake. It punished people like Maylin, like him. Justice and the law were different things. Sometimes they didn't even shake hands. Then why take them? Asher asked. Maylin met his eyes. Because someone should know. Someone should see truth, even if nothing changed. That's a hard way to live. Harder to live with lie. Asher handed the documents back. She tucked them away, back into whatever hidden pocket she'd sewn into that silk dress. Outside, wind howled. Snow began to fall, fat flakes that would cover their tracks by morning. Asher moved to the window, peering through a gap in the shutters. Nothing. Just darkness and snow and trees. But they were out there, waiting, planning. Dawn would come, and with it, whatever Vance had decided. Get some sleep, Asher said. You take the bed. I'll keep watch. We should both sleep. Take turns. You can barely stand. You've been awake since yesterday. He started to argue, then stopped. She was right. Exhaustion pulled at him like gravity. 4 hours, he said. You sleep first. Then we switch. Maylin nodded. She moved to the bed, little more than a frame with blankets, and lay down. Within minutes, her breathing slowed. Asher settled by the window, rifle across his knees. He watched the snow fall, watched shadows move in the darkness, watched nothing and everything. His mind drifted. Back to Cedar Falls. Back to the trial. Back to the moment he'd realized that truth didn't matter. Only perception. Thomas Garrett had been a bastard. Everyone knew it. But he'd been a rich bastard, with a rich family, and when he turned up dead, someone had to pay. Asher had been convenient, solitary, easy to blame. The knife in his saddlebag had been planted. He'd known it then, knew it now. But knowing didn't change the verdict. 15 years. 15 years of isolation, of cold, of learning to trust nothing except his own ability to survive. And now, in one day, he'd thrown all that away for a woman he'd found in an alley. Stupid, reckless, probably suicidal, but also right in a way he couldn't explain, didn't want to explain. Some things you did because they were right, even when they were wrong. Outside, the wind shifted. The snow changed direction, swirling, and in that swirl, for just a moment, Asher thought he saw movement. He tensed, rifle raised. Nothing, just snow, just wind, just paranoia. But he stayed alert, ready, because dawn was coming, and with it, whatever choice Vance had made, whatever blood would be spilled in the name of Baron Magnus Drake's empire. Asher checked his ammunition one more time. 23 bullets. He'd have to make them count. Dawn came gray and reluctant, like it knew what was waiting. Asher hadn't slept. He'd meant to wake Maylin after 4 hours, let her take a watch while he rested. But every time he'd started to move, something had stopped him. A sound that might have been footsteps, a shadow that could have been a man, the wind doing its best impression of whispered conversation. So he'd stayed awake, watching through gaps in the shutters as darkness slowly bled into pale morning light. His eyes burned. His body ached in places he'd forgotten could ache. The missing fingers on his left hand throbbed with phantom pain that no amount of whiskey or time had ever quite killed. Behind him, Maylin stirred. He heard the blanket shift, heard her intake of breath as consciousness dragged her back from whatever dreams or nightmares had occupied the night. They come yet? Her voice was rough with sleep. No. They will. I know. She sat up. In the dim light filtering through the shutters, she looked like a ghost, pale, insubstantial, like a strong wind might carry her away. But when she stood, there was steel in her movements. Whatever weakness had nearly killed her in that alley was being burned away by something stronger. Survival had a way of doing that. Asher had learned it himself years ago. You should have woken me, she said. You needed sleep more than I needed company. Now you need sleep. I watch. I'm fine. You lie. She crossed to him, took the rifle from his hands before he could protest. Sleep. 2 hours. I watch. You know how to use that? She worked the bolt with practiced efficiency, checked the chamber, settled the stock against her shoulder with the ease of someone who'd done it before. My father teach me, she said. Before Baron take everything. Asher wanted to argue. Pride demanded it. But exhaustion was a weight he couldn't carry anymore, and stubbornness only worked when you had the strength to back it up. 2 hours, he said. Wake me if you see anything, hear anything, feel anything wrong. I will. He moved to the bed, still warm from where she'd slept. He meant to just close his eyes for a moment, just rest them, stay alert. He was asleep before his head hit the blanket. When consciousness clawed its way back, the light had changed. Brighter now. Mid-morning, maybe later. He'd slept longer than 2 hours. Asher sat up fast, reaching for the pistol he'd kept on his belt. His hand found it. Good. The rifle was... Maylin stood at the window, rifle ready, her posture relaxed but watchful. She glanced back when she heard him move. Nothing yet, she said. Quiet. Too quiet. Asher stood, joints protesting. He joined her at the window. Outside, the world had transformed. The snow had stopped, leaving everything buried under a fresh white blanket that sparkled in weak sunlight. Beautiful. Deceptive. Snow hid tracks, muffled sound, turned the familiar into something alien. How long? He asked. 3 hours, maybe 4. You needed it, he grunted. She wasn't wrong, but that didn't make him feel better about it. You should have woken me. Why? So you can be tired together? She shook her head. Better one person rested. Movement caught Asher's eye. Far down the slope, barely visible through the trees, a flash of color that didn't belong. Then another. Men, moving into position. There, he said, pointing. Maylin followed his gaze. Her grip tightened on the rifle. How many? Can't tell. At least 4. Maybe more hiding. They watched in silence. The figures moved with purpose, spreading out, creating a perimeter. Professional. Organized. Not the kind of men who made mistakes. A white cloth appeared, tied to a branch. Someone waved it, the universal signal. They want to talk, Maylin said. They want us to think they want to talk. What difference? One's honest, the other's a trap. Below, Silas Vance stepped into view. Even at this distance, the scar on his face was visible, a dark line against pale skin. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Mr. Blackridge, Miss Lynn, I believe we started off on the wrong foot. Asher didn't respond. Beside him, Maylin stayed quiet, watching. The Baron has authorized me to make a new offer, Vance continued. $1,000, cash, for the safe return of the documents. You can keep the woman. She's of no concern to us. Liars, Maylin whispered. Obviously, Asher agreed. The Baron is a reasonable man, Vance called. He understands mistakes happen. No one needs to die today. Just return what belongs to him and we all walk away. You believe him? Maylin asked. No, but I want to hear what he's really offering. Asher moved to the door, unbarred it, stepped outside. The cold hit like a fist. His breath steamed. The snow came up to his shins in places, deeper where it had drifted. He stayed close to the cabin, using it for cover. His hand rested on his pistol. I'm listening, he shouted down. Vance smiled. Even from 50 yards away, Asher could see it. Sensible. I knew you were a reasonable man despite your reputation. What's the real offer? I just stated it. 1,000. The real one, not the performance. Vance's smile didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. The pretense dropped like a discarded coat. All right, Vance said, his voice carrying clear and cold. Here's the truth. The Baron wants those documents. He's willing to pay for them. But if payment doesn't work, he's willing to take them. Your choice determines which method we use. And Maylin? The woman is complicated. She's seen things, knows things. That makes her a liability. So she dies either way. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Vance spread his hands. Mr. Blackridge, you're a practical man. You've survived 15 years alone in these mountains. That takes intelligence, adaptability. Surely you can see the mathematics here. One woman, a foreigner, no family, no connections, against your own life, against peace, against $1,000 that could buy supplies for years. I can see the mathematics fine, Asher said. That's why the answer's no. Why? The question came sharp, genuinely confused. You don't know her. She's nothing to you. Why die for nothing? She's not nothing. She's Chinese. She's standing right here with a rifle pointed at your head, Asher interrupted. And she's a better shot than you think, so I'd watch the next words out of your mouth. Silence. Vance looked up at the cabin, saw Mei Lin in the window, saw the rifle aimed steady. His expression hardened. You're making a mistake, he said. Made plenty of those. What's one more? The Baron doesn't forgive Mr. Blackridge. He doesn't forget. You do this, you're not just refusing a business transaction, you're declaring war. Then I guess we're at war. You can't win. You know that, right? Even if you survive today, he'll send more men, better men. He'll burn this mountain down if he has to. Let him try. Vance stared at him for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly, like a teacher disappointed in a student who'd shown such promise. So be it, he said. We gave you a chance. Remember that. He turned and walked back into the trees. The white flag disappeared. The clearing became empty again, pristine snow unmarked except for the tracks Vance had left. Asher stood there, watching, counting. 1 minute, 2, 3. Nothing happened. He backed toward the cabin, never taking his eyes off the tree line. His instinct screamed. This was wrong. Too easy. The shot came from nowhere and everywhere at once. The bullet hit the door frame where Asher's head had been a half-second earlier, exploding wood into splinters. He dove, rolled, came up behind a woodpile he'd stacked last autumn. More shots. 3, 4, 5 in rapid succession, from different positions. They'd surrounded the cabin while Vance talked. The truce had been a lie. The offer had been a distraction, and Asher had almost fallen for it. Mei Lin, he shouted. Get down! Inside the cabin, he heard her moving, heard furniture scraping as she took cover. Good. She had sense. Asher drew his pistol, fired twice toward where he'd seen muzzle flash, covering fire, making them think twice about advancing. A bullet punched through the woodpile, missing him by inches. These weren't warning shots. They were killing shots, placed by men who knew their business. He counted the shots, tracked the positions. 4 shooters, maybe 5. Spread out in a semicircle, using the trees for cover, moving between shots to make it harder to target them. Professional. Experienced. Exactly what the Baron would send. Another volley. Wood splintered. Snow exploded where bullets hit. One round punched through the cabin's wall. The logs were thick, but not bulletproof. Asher heard Mei Lin return fire. The rifle cracked once, twice. Someone cursed in the trees. She'd hit something, maybe not killed, but connected. How many you see? Asher called. 4, no 5, 1 moving left. Asher shifted position, using the woodpile as mobile cover, staying low. He caught movement, a figure in dark clothes sliding between trees. He fired. The figure dropped, but Asher couldn't tell if it was a hit or just the man taking cover. The shooting intensified. They were trying to pin him down, keep him from moving, make him an easy target. Standard tactics. Effective if you had the numbers. And they did. Asher's mind raced. The cabin was defensible but not a fortress. The walls would stop some bullets, but not all. The windows were shuttered but vulnerable. And they only had 2 ways out, the front door and a back window that barely qualified as an escape route. They were trapped, outnumbered, low on ammunition, but they had one advantage, high ground. Mei Lin, he shouted. The chimney! What? Block the chimney, blanket, wood, anything. A pause. Then he heard her moving. She understood. If they blocked the chimney, smoke would fill the cabin, but it would also create a smoke screen outside. The attackers would lose visibility, lose clean shots. It bought them maybe 10 minutes, but sometimes 10 minutes was enough. Smoke began trickling from the cabin's roof, then pouring. Thick, gray, rolling down the slope like fog. The wind caught it, spread it, turned the clearing into a gray nightmare. Asher moved. He left the woodpile, staying low, using smoke for cover. He circled left, where he'd seen the last muzzle flash. Visibility dropped to feet. Asher's eyes watered. His lungs burned. But he kept moving, pistol ready, counting steps, building a mental map of where everyone should be. A shape materialized in the smoke. Man-sized, holding a rifle. Asher fired. The shape collapsed. He moved past it without checking, driven by momentum and necessity. Stopping meant dying. Hesitation meant a bullet in the back. Another figure, this one closer than expected. They saw each other simultaneously. The man swung his rifle up. Asher was faster. Barely. 2 shots. Center mass. The man went down hard. Breathing harsh now, pulse hammering. Asher's hands shook. Adrenaline, not fear. He'd learned the difference years ago. He reloaded, muscle memory taking over while his mind tracked threats. 2 down. Maybe 3 left. Maybe more he hadn't seen. The smoke was thinning, wind shifting. In seconds, he'd be exposed. Asher ran, back toward the cabin using trees for cover, zigzagging, making himself a hard target. Bullets followed, close enough to hear, not close enough to hit. He reached the cabin's side wall, pressed against it, gasping. His chest burned. The cold air seared his lungs with every breath. "Asher!" Maylin's voice from inside, muffled. "I'm alive. 3 left. I see 3." So 5 total. He'd dropped 2. 3 remained. Better odds, but still not good. A new sound cut through the chaos. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses. Coming fast. Reinforcements? Or Asher Blackridge. The voice was new, refined, educated, wrong for this place. "I believe we have business to discuss." Through the clearing smoke, a figure on horseback emerged. Tall, aristocratic, wearing a coat that cost more than most men earned in a year. His horse was a thoroughbred, gleaming even in the dim light. Baron Magnus Drake himself. Asher's blood went cold. Drake never came to these things, never got his hands dirty. That he was here meant this wasn't just about the documents anymore. This was personal. "Call off your men," Asher shouted. "Why would I do that?" Drake's voice was calm, conversational, like they were discussing weather, not a gunfight. "You have something that belongs to me. I'm simply retrieving it." "Those documents belong to the people you stole from." "Stole" is such an ugly word. I prefer acquired, legally, through proper channels. "Legal doesn't make it right." Drake laughed. Actually laughed. "Right? Mr. Blackridge, you were convicted of murder. You fled justice. You've spent 15 years as a fugitive, and now you lecture me about right and wrong? I didn't kill Thomas Garrett. Didn't you? A jury disagreed. A jury you bought. Now that's slander, actionable in court, if court still mattered to men like you." Asher moved along the wall, trying to get an angle. Drake saw him, smiled. "Stay where you are, Mr. Blackridge. My men have you targeted. One wrong move and this conversation becomes very short." Asher stopped. He could see them now, shapes in the trees, rifles aimed, waiting for Drake's signal. "What do you want?" Asher asked. "What I've always wanted. Order. Civilization. These territories are chaos, Mr. Blackridge. Someone has to bring structure. Someone has to make the hard decisions. By killing anyone who gets in your way? By removing obstacles. It's not personal. It's progress. Tell that to Maylin's family." Drake's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Ah, yes, the girl. Regrettable that. Her father was stubborn, refused a generous offer for his land, forced me to take alternative measures. "You murdered them." "I solved a problem. There's a difference." Asher's finger tightened on the trigger. 1 shot. Drake was maybe 30 yards away. Asher could make it. End this. But the men in the trees would kill him before Drake's body hit the ground. And Maylin would die alone, trapped in a burning cabin. "I'll make you an offer," Drake said. "One time only. Give me the documents. Leave the territory. I'll give you $5,000 and a fresh start somewhere else. California, maybe. Oregon. Somewhere you can build a new life without this tiresome burden of false justice." "And Maylin?" "She stays, faces consequences for theft." "No." "Mr. Blackridge," I said no. Drake's patience cracked. Just for a moment, but Asher saw it. The flash of rage, of disbelief that someone would refuse him. "You're choosing death," Drake said quietly. "For both of you. Over nothing." "She's not nothing. She's a Chinese peasant girl who stole documents she can barely read. She's standing right behind you," Mei Lin's voice cut through the clearing. Everyone turned, including Drake. Mei Lin stood on the cabin's roof, rifle aimed, her footing precarious on the snow-covered shingles. She must have climbed out the chimney, used the smoke as cover. Brave, reckless, perfectly timed. "You move, I shoot," she said. Her English was broken, but her meaning clear. "Your men shoot me, I still shoot you. We both die. You want that?" Drake's face went pale. For the first time, fear crossed his features. Not fear of death. Men like Drake rarely feared their own mortality. Fear of losing control. "You wouldn't," he said. "You kill my family. You take everything. Why I not kill you?" "Because it solves nothing. I die, someone else takes my place. The machine continues." "Maybe, but you still dead." Silence. The clearing held its breath. Asher could see Drake's men in the trees, see their rifles tracking Mei Lin, but none of them moved. They were waiting for Drake's order. And Drake was calculating, running numbers in his head, weighing his own life against his pride. "Stand down," Drake said quietly. "Sir?" Vance's voice from the trees. "I said stand down!" Sharper now. "Lower your weapons." Slowly, reluctantly, the rifles lowered. Not holstered, just lowered, ready to snap back up at any moment. Drake turned his horse, putting distance between himself and Mei Lin's rifle. When he spoke again, his voice was cold, controlled, dangerous. "This isn't over," he'd said. "You've won a battle, not the war. I have resources you can't imagine, men, money, influence. I can make your lives so difficult that death will seem like mercy." "Then why offer deals?" Asher asked. "Why talk instead of just killing us?" Drake smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Because I'm a civilized man, Mr. Blackridge. I prefer solutions that don't create martyrs. But if you insist on being difficult," he shrugged. "Well, some problems only have one solution." He pulled his horse around, started to leave, then stopped, turned back. "1 week," he said. "That's how long you have. 7 days to reconsider. After that, I stop being civilized." He rode away. His men followed, melting into the trees like they'd never been there. But they had been. The bodies proved it. And the threat lingered like smoke. Asher waited until the hoofbeats faded completely. Then he moved to the cabin, looked up at Mei Lin. "You can come down now." She didn't move. "They gone?" "For now." "You sure?" "No, but standing on a roof in the cold won't make you any safer." She climbed down, carefully, her movements stiff from tension and cold. When her feet hit the ground, she stumbled. Asher caught her. "That was stupid," he said. "It worked. You could have fallen, could have been shot, could have done nothing and die anyway. This way, we live." She pulled away from him, brushing snow from her silk dress. "You not happy I save you?" "I'm—" Asher stopped. He didn't know what he was. Angry, impressed, terrified, all of it at once. "I'm glad you're alive." "Me too." They stood there for a moment, neither quite sure what to do with the adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Then Asher remembered the bodies. "Help me," he said. "With what?" "The dead. We need to move them, bury them if the ground wasn't frozen. Hide them at least." "Why?" "They try kill us." "Because leaving them draws animals, and because—" He paused. "Because it's right." Mei Lin studied him. "You strange man, Asher Blackridge. Enemy try kill you, you still show respect. Respect's got nothing to do with it, just decency." They worked in silence, dragging the bodies into a ravine 100 yards from the cabin. 2 men, just like Asher had counted. Young, probably under 30. Someone's sons, maybe someone's brothers. Dead because they'd chosen the wrong employer. Or maybe because Asher had chosen the wrong fight. By the time they finished, the sun had moved past its peak. Afternoon light slanted through the trees, making the snow sparkle like it was trying to hide the morning's violence under beauty. Back at the cabin, they took stock. The walls were pocked with bullet holes. The door hung crooked where a shot had splintered the frame. Inside, smoke damage blackened the ceiling. The place smelled like gunpowder and burnt wood. Home sweet home.
Can't stay here, Asher said. Why not? They leave. They'll be back. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But they'll come. And next time, they'll bring more men. Better strategy. Then where we go? Good question. The mountains were vast, but winter limited options. Most passes were already snowed in. The valleys were controlled by men who answered to the Baron. Going back to Cedar Falls was suicide. I have a place, Asher said slowly. Old hunting cabin. 3 days north. Remote. Defendable. Nobody knows about it except... He trailed off. Except some people who might help. If they're still alive. If they remember me. They help you before? I helped them, long time ago. Might be they'd return the favor. Might? It's the best I've got. Mei Lin looked around the damaged cabin, at the bullet holes and smoke stains and broken door. Then she looked at Asher. Then we go, she said, before they come back. They packed fast. Asher grabbed what supplies had survived. Ammunition, dried food, blankets. Mei Lin found warmer clothes in a trunk. Old things that had belonged to someone Asher didn't talk about. A woman's clothes, wool and practical, that fit Mei Lin reasonably well. She didn't ask whose they'd been. He didn't offer. By the time they finished, the sun was sinking toward the horizon. They had maybe 3 hours of daylight left. Asher saddled Slate. The horse looked tired, worn, but game, always game. You ride? He asked Mei Lin. Little. My father have horse. Before the Baron took it. She nodded. All right, you'll ride behind me. It'll be slow going, but faster than walking. They mounted. Mei Lin's arms wrapped around Asher's waist, holding tight. She'd stopped flinching at the contact. Progress, he supposed. Asher guided Slate north, away from the cabin, away from Cedar Falls, away from everything familiar, into wilderness that cared nothing for human conflict, into cold that killed without malice, into a future measured in days, not weeks. Behind them, smoke still rose from the cabin's chimney, a signal to anyone watching. We're leaving. We're running. Come find us if you dare. They rode until full dark, then made camp in a hollow sheltered by rocks and pine trees. No fire. Too risky. They ate cold rations and huddled under blankets, sharing warmth the way animals did when survival trumped comfort. Asher? Mei Lin's voice in the darkness. Yeah? Why you help me? Truth. He was quiet for a long time. The question deserved a real answer, not the deflections he'd been using. Because I know what it's like, he finally said. To be accused of something you didn't do. To have everyone believe the lie. To run because staying meant dying. You innocent. They say you kill man, but you not. Doesn't matter. Guilty, innocent, doesn't change how people treat you. Doesn't change being alone. You not alone now. No, I'm not. She shifted closer, her head resting against his shoulder. Not romantic, just human contact, the kind that reminded you both that you weren't dead yet. Those people you know, she said, the ones who might help. They good people? They were. Don't know about now. 15 years changes folks. Change you. Made me harder, colder, less likely to trust. But you trust me. I don't know you well enough not to trust you. She laughed, soft, unexpected. That make no sense. Welcome to my life. They fell silent. Around them, the night sounds of the mountains, wind in trees, snow sliding from branches, the distant howl of something hungry. Asher lay awake long after Mei Lin's breathing had deepened into sleep. His mind wouldn't stop racing. Drake's threat. The dead men in the ravine. The documents hidden in Mei Lin's dress, worth more than gold and just as dangerous. 1 week. That's what Drake had said. 7 days. Then the civilized veneer would drop, and the real hunt would begin. Asher stared up at stars visible through gaps in the pine branches. Cold, distant, indifferent. The same stars that had watched over him for 15 years. The same stars that would watch over his grave when this was done. He thought about turning back. Thought about leaving Mei Lin at some settlement,
giving her enough money to disappear, washing his hands of this mess. Thought about it, didn't do it. Some choices you made weren't about logic. They were about who you were when nobody was watching, about whether you could look at yourself and recognize the person staring back. Asher had spent 15 years becoming someone he could live with. Hard, yes, scarred, damaged, but not broken, not corrupt. He wasn't about to change that now. Beside him, Mei Lin murmured something in Chinese. A name, maybe. Or a prayer. Or just sleep talk, meaning nothing. Asher pulled the blanket tighter around them both and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring its own problems. Tonight, they were alive. That would have to be enough. The third day broke with a sky the color of old bruises. They'd been riding since before dawn, pushing north through terrain that seemed designed to kill the careless. Slate picked his way across frozen streams and through snowdrifts that came up to the horse's chest, while Asher navigated by landmarks only he could see. A lightning-scarred pine, a rock formation that looked like a broken tooth, the way shadows fell across a particular ridge. Mei Lin hadn't complained once, not about the cold that turned exposed skin numb within minutes, not about the hunger that gnawed despite their careful rationing, not about sleeping on frozen ground with only blankets and body heat for warmth. She just held on and kept moving, her arms wrapped tight around Asher's waist, her face pressed against his back to shield it from wind that cut like broken glass. Tough. Tougher than she looked. Tougher than most men Asher had known. How much further? Her voice was muffled by his coat. 2 hours. Maybe 3 if the weather turns. It already turned. She wasn't wrong. The sky had that heavy quality that promised snow. Not the gentle kind that fell in fat flakes and made everything pretty. The vicious kind that blinded and buried and killed. We'll make it, Asher said. He hoped it wasn't a lie. They crested a ridge, and Asher pulled Slate to a stop. Below, a valley spread out, narrow, steep-sided, with a frozen creek running through its center. And there, tucked against the northern slope, almost invisible unless you knew where to look, stood a cabin. Smaller than Asher's burned home, older, half buried in snow and surrounded by pines that had grown thick enough to hide it from casual eyes. There, Asher said. Mei Lin lifted her head, following his gaze. That it? The place you talk about? That's it. Look. Dead. Yeah, hasn't been used in years, but the structure's solid. Stone foundation, log walls. It'll hold. You sure? I built most of it myself, 20 years ago, back when I still thought I could make something permanent in this world. They descended carefully. Slate's hooves slipped on icy rocks, and twice they had to dismount and lead the horse through sections too treacherous to ride. By the time they reached the valley floor, Asher's legs were shaking from exertion and cold, and Mei Lin looked like she might collapse if she stopped moving. The cabin door was frozen shut. Asher had to put his shoulder into it, once, twice, 3 times before the ice broke and the hinges screamed in protest. The door swung open, revealing darkness and the musty smell of long abandonment. Inside, everything was exactly as he'd left it. Dust-covered furniture, a stone fireplace, shelves that had once held supplies, a single window with shutters hanging crooked. Home, sort of. I get fire started, Mei Lin said. She was already moving, gathering kindling from a pile in the corner, checking the chimney for blockages. While she worked, Asher tended to Slate. He led the horse to a lean-to attached to the cabin's side. Basic shelter, but better than nothing. He rubbed the animal down with handfuls of dry pine needles, checked for injuries, rationed out the last of their grain. You did good, he told the horse. Slate's ears flicked toward him, the only acknowledgement needed. By the time Asher came back inside, Mei Lin had a fire going. Small, careful, using dry wood that wouldn't smoke much. Smart. She'd learned fast what survival required. They sat close to the flames, letting warmth seep into bones that had forgotten what it felt like. Neither spoke for a long time. They were too tired, too cold, too aware of how close they'd come to not making it. Finally, Mei Lin broke the silence. You say people might help. Were they? Don't know. I'm hoping they still patrol these valleys. Used to, anyway. Small group, settlers, trappers, people who didn't fit in towns. We helped each other when times got hard. When you helped them, Asher stared into the fire. 6 years ago, maybe 7. Raiders came through, trying to take their supplies, burn them out. I happened to be nearby, happened to have ammunition and no particular love for bullies. You fight them? Fought them off, killed 3, the rest ran. So they owe you.
Nobody owes anybody, but I'm hoping they remember. Maylin was quiet for a moment, then, You think Baron's men follow us? Haven't seen signs, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Maybe we lose them. Maybe. Or maybe they're just being patient, waiting for us to stop, settle, get comfortable. Then what we do? Asher pulled the documents from where Maylin had hidden them. She'd transferred them to her new clothes, sewn into a pocket she'd made with surprising skill.
He spread the papers out near the firelight, studying them again. Deeds, transfers, legal documents that proved Baron Magnus Drake had built his empire on murder and lies. Evidence that should matter. That would matter, if the world worked the way it was supposed to. But the world didn't work that way. Asher knew it. Maylin knew it. We make copies, Asher said slowly. Hide them in different places. Make sure if Drake gets the originals, there are backups. Who we give backups to? Who we trust? I don't know yet. But sitting on these forever doesn't work either. Eventually, we have to move. Have to do something. Or die trying. Or that. Maylin reached out, her fingers touching the papers lightly. My father's name here. See? Lin Chen. This his land. Farm where I grow up. Where my mother plant garden. Where my brother... Her voice caught. Where we happy. Before. Asher saw it. The deed transfer, dated 3 years ago. Signed by Baron Drake and witnessed by people Asher recognized, town officials, all in Drake's pocket. Lin Chen's name appeared in the deceased column. No heirs listed. Property transferred to Drake's holdings for unpaid debts. Except Maylin was an heir, standing right here, very much alive. They said your family was dead? Asher asked. They make it true. Father gets sick after Baron's men come, threaten him, beat him. He not strong after that. Die in winter. Her hands clenched. Mother die from broken heart, I think. Your language not have word for it, but her spirit die first. Body just follow. And your brother? Accident. That what they say. He fall from horse, break neck. Her voice was flat, emotionless. The kind of tone that came from telling a story too many times, from draining all the pain out until only facts remained. But I see bruises, see marks, not from falling. I'm sorry. Sorry not bring them back. Sorry not make Baron pay. Only these papers... She touched them again. Only these maybe do something. They will. I promise. You cannot promise that. No. But I can try. We can try. A sound outside made them both freeze, faint, distant. Could have been wind. Could have been an animal. Could have been horses. Asher moved to the window, peered through gaps in the shutters. Darkness had fallen while they'd been talking, full night, with clouds covering the stars. Visibility was maybe 20 feet, if that. He saw nothing, heard nothing more. But the hair on the back of his neck stood up anyway. Put out the fire, he said quietly. Maylin didn't argue. She smothered the flames with dirt from the floor, plunging them into darkness. Asher's eyes adjusted slowly, pulling shapes from shadows. They waited. Minutes stretched like hours. Asher's hand rested on his pistol. Beside him, Maylin held the rifle, her breathing controlled and steady. Then, voices. Definitely voices. Low, conversational. Coming closer. Asher counted. 3 distinct speakers, maybe 4. All male. Getting closer. His mind raced through options. They could run, out the back, into the forest, trust darkness and terrain to hide them. But Slate was in the lean-to, and abandoning the horse meant death by exposure within days. They could fight. 3 or 4 against 2, in darkness, in close quarters. Not good odds, but not impossible. Or they could wait. See who these people were. Hope they weren't Drake's men. The voices stopped just outside. A knock on the door. 3 sharp raps. Asher Blackridge. A man's voice, rough but not hostile. I know you're in there. Your horse is outside and the chimney's still warm. Asher didn't recognize the voice, but the fact that they'd knocked instead of shooting was something. Who's asking? He called back. Jacob Reeves. You pulled my family's ass out of the fire 7 years ago. Figure I owe you at least a conversation before deciding whether to shoot you. Reeves. The name clicked. Tall man, early 50s, with a scar across his forehead from a raider's knife. Had 3 kids and a wife who could outshoot most men Asher knew. You alone? Asher asked. Got 3 friends with me, all armed. But we're not here to start trouble unless you are. Asher glanced at Mei Lin. She shrugged, the universal gesture for your call. He moved to the door, rifle ready, and opened it slowly. 4 men stood outside. Jacob Reeves in front, exactly as Asher remembered him. Older now, grayer, but with the same hard eyes that had seen too much and somehow kept going anyway. Behind him, 3 younger men, all armed, all watching Asher with expressions that weren't quite friendly, but weren't quite hostile either. Hell, Reeves said, a smile cracking his weathered face. Thought you were dead. Heard you'd crossed the Barren and got yourself killed for it. Heard wrong. Apparently, Reeves's eyes shifted past Asher, landing on Mei Lin. That the Chinese girl everyone's looking for? Everyone? Barron's got men in every valley, every settlement, offering rewards. Said she's a thief, dangerous. Reeves paused. Is she? She's someone who saw something she shouldn't have, and someone who's lost everything because of it. Reeves studied Mei Lin for a long moment. She stared back, unflinching, rifle held steady. She always hold guns like she knows how to use them? Reeves asked. Her father taught her. Smart man. Shame what happened to his family. Asher's eyes narrowed. You know about that? No, the Baron's been swallowing up land for years. No, people who refuse his offers tend to have unfortunate accidents. No, most folks are too scared to do anything about it. Reeves shifted his weight. We heard you were involved. Heard you'd chosen the wrong side. Wanted to see for ourselves. And now that you've seen? Now I'm deciding whether you're stupid, brave, or both. Probably both. Reeves laughed, short, sharp. Fair enough. Can we come in? It's colder than a well-digger's ass out here. Asher stepped back. The 4 men entered, filling the small cabin with their presence. They kept their weapons lowered, but ready. A polite fiction that everyone was friends here, but nobody was stupid enough to believe it completely. Mei Lin relit the fire. In the growing light, Asher got a better look at Reeves's companions. Young men, probably mid-20s. Related, maybe. Brothers or cousins. All with the lean, hard look of people who'd earned their survival. These are the Morrison boys, Reeves said, gesturing. Daniel, Samuel, and Thomas. Good fighters. Better trackers. They've been helping to patrol the northern valleys since the Baron's men started getting ambitious. Ambitious how? Asher asked. Pushing boundaries, testing, seeing how far they can go before someone pushes back. Daniel Morrison spoke, the eldest, maybe 27. We've had 3 families burned out in the last year. Not officially, of course, just accidents, unexplained fires, bad luck. But everyone knows, Samuel added. He was younger, angrier. Everyone knows it's Drake. Everyone's too scared to do anything. Until now, Thomas said. He was the youngest, barely out of his teens, but his eyes were old. You standing up to him, word spreads fast. People are talking. Talking doesn't stop bullets, Asher said. No, but it's a start. Reeves settled onto a stool that creaked under his weight. The question is what comes next. You can't hide forever. Drake won't stop. He's got too much invested. I know. So what's your plan? Asher glanced at Mei Lin. She was watching the exchange, following what she could, her hand never far from the rifle. Honestly, I don't have one. Beyond survive the next few days and hope something changes. Hope's not a plan. It's all I've got right now. Reeves nodded slowly. Then maybe we can help with that. Why would you? Because Drake's not just your problem. He's everyone's problem. Every family he destroys, every piece of land he steals, it makes him stronger, makes all of us weaker. Someone has to draw a line somewhere. And that someone is me? You're already standing on the line. Question is whether you're alone when Drake comes to erase it. The offer hung in the air. Asher wanted to refuse it, wanted to say this wasn't anyone else's fight, that he'd handle it himself, that he didn't need help. But that would be a lie. And pride was a luxury he couldn't afford. "What kind of help are we talking about?" he asked. 6 more fighters like us, Reeves said. "Maybe 8 if we can convince the Miller family. All good shots, all people who've lost something to Drake, all ready to make him pay if we can figure out how. That's maybe 12 people against an entire organization. True. But we know this territory. Drake's men don't, and surprise counts for a lot. It counts for something, not everything. So we make it count for enough." Asher looked at the Morrison boys. Young, determined, probably going to die if they followed through on this. But they were going to die anyway. Everyone did. Question was whether you died running or standing. "The documents Maylin has," Asher said slowly, "they're proof. Real proof of what Drake's done. Names, dates, properties. If we could get them to the right people—" "What right people?" Samuel interrupted. "The sheriff? He's in Drake's pocket. The judge? Same. The territorial governor? He owes Drake for campaign funding. Then we find someone who doesn't owe Drake anything. Someone clean. Good luck with that." "There's a federal marshal," Daniel said quietly, "based in Cheyenne. Samuel Harrison, supposed to be honest. Actually investigates things." "Supposed to be," Thomas emphasized. "Nobody knows for sure. Could be he's bought too." "Could be," Asher agreed. "But if there's a chance he's legitimate, we have to try. Cheyenne's a week away, 2 weeks in this weather. You'd never make it with Drake's men hunting you. Then we create a distraction. Make Drake look somewhere else while someone gets the documents through." Reeves leaned forward. "What kind of distraction?" "The kind that makes him think we're doing something else. Something that matters more to him than one girl with papers." "Like what?" Asher's mind raced. What mattered to Drake? Land, money, control, power, reputation. "What if word got out?" Asher said. "What if people knew what was in those documents? What if every settlement, every valley, every family Drake threatened knew he was coming for them next?" "Panic," Reeves said. "You'd cause panic. I'd cause awareness. Right now people think it's just bad luck, isolated incidents. But if they knew it was systematic, that Drake has a plan to take everything, maybe they'd fight back. Maybe they'd just run. Some would, but some wouldn't. Some would stand. And die. Probably. But dying fighting is still better than dying on your knees." Silence. The fire crackled. Outside, wind howled through the valley, carrying snow that was just starting to fall. Maylin spoke, her English careful and deliberate. "My father die on knees, begging, asking for mercy Baron not have. She struggled for words. "I not die like that. I die fighting. If I die." "Nobody's dying," Asher said. "You cannot promise that either." "No, but I can make it as hard as possible for Drake to make it happen." Reeves stood. "We'll go back. Talk to people. See who's willing to stand. Give you 3 days, maybe 4. Then we'll know what we're working with. And if nobody's willing, then it's just us, but at least you'll know." The Morrison boys stood as well. They moved toward the door, then Daniel paused. "Mr. Blackridge, you really didn't kill Thomas Garrett, did you?" Asher met his eyes. "No." "Figured. Garrett was a bastard. Probably had a dozen people who wanted him dead. Convenient you were the one they blamed." "Very convenient. For Drake." The implication sat there. Asher had thought it himself over the years. The timing had been too perfect, the evidence too clean, the verdict too quick. But suspecting and knowing were different things. "We'll be back," Reeves said. He offered his hand. Asher shook it. The grip was firm, calloused, real. The 4 men left. Their footsteps crunched away through fresh snow, fading until only wind remained. Asher barred the door behind them. "You trust them?" Maylin asked. "I don't trust anyone, but I believe they mean what they say." "That different?" "Has to be." They settled back by the fire. Asher's mind wouldn't stop working, turning over possibilities, calculating odds, planning for contingencies that might never happen. 3 days. Maybe 4. Then they'd know if they were fighting alone or with help. Then they'd know if this was suicide or just incredibly dangerous. "Asher?" Maylin's voice was soft. Yeah? Thank you for all this. For not give up, not give me to Baron. Don't thank me yet. We're not out of this. I know, but still, thank you. She moved closer, her head resting against his shoulder like it had in the camp. Warmth, contact, proof that neither of them was alone. Asher let her stay there. He told himself it was just practical, shared heat, mutual comfort, survival. But that was a lie, and he knew it. Somewhere along the way, this had stopped being about survival and started being about something else. Something he didn't have words for. Something that scared him more than Drake's threats, or bullets, or the possibility of dying alone in these mountains. Outside, the snow fell heavier, the kind that would bury tracks, erase paths, make the world clean and blank and new. The kind that killed quietly while you slept. Asher added wood to the fire and kept watch through the night, listening for sounds that didn't belong, watching for shadows that moved wrong. Dawn came eventually, it always did, but it brought something unexpected. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses. Coming fast. Asher grabbed his rifle, moved to the window. Through the shutters, he saw them. Riders, at least 6, emerging from the tree line. Not Reeves and the Morrison boys. Different men, armed, moving with purpose. And in the lead, visible even at a distance, Silas Vance, scar stark against his face. They'd been found. Maylin, Asher's voice was sharp. Get the documents. We need to move. She was already moving, grabbing the papers, stuffing them back into her hidden pocket. How many? Too many. 6 at least. We run? We don't have a choice. But even as he said it, Asher knew they were trapped. The valley had limited exits, and all of them would be watched. The snow outside was too deep for fast movement. Slate was tired, pushed to the limit. They could run, but they wouldn't get far. Vance's voice carried across the valley. Mr. Blackridge, the Baron sends his regards and his final offer. Asher didn't respond. He was scanning the terrain, looking for options, finding none. 7 days, Vance called. That's what he gave you. It's been 4. Consider this your early wake-up call. Movement to the left. 2 men, circling, trying to flank the cabin. Time to choose, Mr. Blackridge. Return what you stole, or we take it. How they find us, Maylin whispered. Tracks, smoke, luck. Doesn't matter. They're here. What we do? Asher's mind raced. They could fortify the cabin, try to hold out, but that only delayed the inevitable. They could surrender, hope for mercy. But mercy wasn't in Vance's vocabulary. Or they could fight. Make Vance pay for every inch. Make Drake regret sending only 6 men. We fight, Asher said, but smart, not a last stand, a fighting retreat. Keep them busy while we look for an opening. Opening to what? To anywhere that's not here. He moved to the door, rifle ready. When I start shooting, you go out the back. Head for the rocks on the eastern slope. I'll cover you. No, we fight together. Maylin, together, or not at all. Her eyes were hard, final, non-negotiable. Asher wanted to argue, wanted to order her to run, to save herself, to prioritize survival over pride. But he'd made the same choice back in Cedar Falls. And he understood. Some things mattered more than living. All right, he said, together. But you follow my lead. I say move, you move. I say shoot, you shoot. Understood? Understood, Vance called out again. Last chance, Blackridge! Asher opened the door, stepped out into the cold morning light. 6 men. Vance in the center, 2 flanking left, 2 right, 1 hanging back, probably their best shot, covering everyone else. Professional, organized, deadly. Here's my answer. Asher raised his rifle and fired. The shot took Vance in the shoulder, not a kill shot, but enough to spin him and drop him. The other men scattered, diving for cover, returning fire. Bullets punched through the cabin walls. Wood exploded. Snow kicked up where rounds hit. Maylin fired from the window. Once, twice. One of the flanking men went down, clutching his leg. 5 left. Asher retreated inside, reloading. Back window! Now! They moved together, Asher providing covering fire while Maylin kicked out the shutters. She climbed through, dropped into snow that came up to her waist. Asher followed, hit the ground, rolled, came up firing. A man appeared around the cabin's corner. Asher's bullet caught him center mass. He went down hard. 4 left. They ran, through snow that grabbed and held, through terrain that wanted to kill them, toward rocks that might provide cover. Behind them, shouts. Orders. The sound of men who'd just realized their targets were escaping. Bullets followed. Close. Too close. One grazed Asher's coat, tearing fabric but missing flesh. They reached the rocks, a tumble of boulders that created a natural fortress. Asher pulled Mei Lin behind the largest one, checking her for injuries. You hit? No. You? No. How many left? 4, maybe 3. Hard to tell. We cannot stay here. They surround us. She was right. This position gave them temporary shelter, but it was ultimately a trap. High ground was good for defense, bad for escape. And escape was the only option that ended with them alive. There, Asher pointed to a narrow gap between rocks, leads to the ridge. If we can reach it, we can lose them in the forest. Big if. Only if we've got. They moved. Fast as the snow allowed. Bullets followed, sparking off rocks, throwing up powder. The gap was narrow, tight. Asher had to turn sideways to fit through. Mei Lin was smaller, faster. She went first. Then she stopped. Asher, problem. He squeezed through, saw what she meant. The gap led to a cliff, 20 feet straight down to rocks and frozen creek. Not survivable, not without broken bones at minimum. They were trapped. Back! Asher turned, but voices behind them cut off that option. The men had followed them into the rocks. 3 men emerged. Vance wasn't with them, still bleeding from his shoulder, probably. But these 3 looked mean and motivated. Drop the weapons, the lead man ordered, late 30s with a face that had seen too many fights and started enjoying them. Do it now, or we drop you. Asher's rifle was raised. So was Mei Lin's. 3 against 2. In close quarters. Nobody would walk away clean. The Baron wants the girl alive, the man continued. But he didn't say anything about you, Blackridge. So here's how this goes. You drop the weapon and step aside, or we kill you and take her anyway. Not happening. Your funeral. The man's finger tightened on the trigger. Then thunder rolled across the valley. Not weather, horses. Multiple horses. Coming fast. Everyone froze. The sound grew louder, closer. Then they appeared, riders cresting the eastern ridge. 10, 12, maybe more. Armed, moving with purpose. At their head, Jacob Reeves, rifle raised. Looks like you boys are outnumbered, Reeves's voice carried clear across the rocks. Might want to reconsider your position. The 3 men looked at each other. Calculations flickered across their faces. 3 against 2 had been good odds. 3 against 15 was suicide. This isn't over, the lead man snarled. The Baron can come himself if he wants a fight, Reeves interrupted. Now get out before I forget I'm a civilized man. The 3 men retreated, slowly, weapons raised. But retreating. Asher watched them go, watched them reach their horses, watched them ride out, carrying their wounded. Only then did he lower his rifle. Reeves and his people descended into the rocks. More than the Morrison boys now, men and women Asher half recognized. Settlers, trappers, people who'd chosen hard over easy. You're early, Asher said. Figured you'd need help sooner rather than later, Reeves replied. He looked at the dead men, the bullet casings, the blood in the snow. Looks like I figured right. How'd you know? Saw Drake's men moving north yesterday. Did the math. Decided to check on you before they did. Reeves grinned. Lucky for you, we're good at math. Mei Lin stepped forward. Thank you. You save us. Don't thank me yet. This was just round 1. Drake's going to be angry. And angry men make mistakes, but they also get more dangerous. Then we use that, Asher said. We make him angry enough to make mistakes big enough to matter. How? Asher looked at the documents hidden in Mei Lin's clothes, looked at the people gathered around them, looked at the valley, the mountains, the vast territory that Drake thought he owned. We hit him where it hurts, Asher said. We expose him, make sure everyone knows what these documents prove, make it impossible for him to operate in the shadows. That starts a war. War's already started. We're just deciding to fight back. Reeves considered this, then nodded. All right, then let's make it count. They returned to the cabin together. Asher's home for one night, now a battlefield, soon to be abandoned. But it had served its purpose. It had bought time, given them allies, turned the odds from impossible to merely terrible. And sometimes terrible was enough. The hunters found them on the fourth day. Asher had known they would, had felt it in his bones the way animals feel coming storms. The question had never been if, only when and how many. They'd made it to the old hunting cabin, barely. 3 days of brutal travel through mountain passes that tested Slate's endurance and their own. Maylin had stopped complaining about the cold on day 2, which worried Asher more than if she'd kept talking. Silence meant she was conserving energy, meant survival had become the only thing that mattered. The cabin was worse than Asher remembered. The roof sagged under snow weight. One wall had partially collapsed, but it had 4 walls and most of a roof, which made it a palace compared to sleeping in the open. They'd spent half a day making it livable, clearing debris, blocking gaps with pine branches and packed snow, building a fire that wouldn't smoke them out but would keep them from freezing. Maylin had worked without complaint, her hands raw and bleeding from the cold and rough wood. When Asher tried to make her stop, she'd just given him a look that said more than words could. She wasn't fragile, wasn't going to break just because things got hard. He'd learned to respect that. They'd fortified as best they could, stacked firewood to create barriers at the windows, set up crude tripwires around the perimeter. Nothing sophisticated, just rope and tin cans that would make noise if disturbed. Asher had taught Maylin the basics of reloading the rifle, showed her how to sight down the barrel, where to aim if killing needed doing. She'd learned fast, too fast. Like she'd been preparing for this her whole life. Maybe she had been. Maybe when you grew up watching the Baron's men destroy everything you loved, you learned that survival wasn't optional. It was the only choice that mattered. On the 4th morning, the tin cans rattled. Asher was awake instantly, rifle in hand, moving to the window. Dawn was just breaking, painting the snow in shades of gray and pale gold, beautiful and deadly, like everything in these mountains. Maylin stirred behind him. They here? Yeah. How many? Don't know yet. Stay low. He watched through the gap he'd left in the wood barrier. At first, nothing. Just trees and snow and the kind of silence that made your ears ring. Then movement. A figure, then another, then more. They materialized from the forest like they'd been part of it all along. 8 men, maybe 9, all armed, all moving with the practiced efficiency of soldiers or worse. Vance led them. Even at a distance, Asher recognized the scar, the way he carried himself. Behind him came men Asher didn't know. Hired guns, probably. The kind who killed for money and slept fine afterward. 8, Asher said quietly. Professionals. This isn't like before. Maylin moved beside him, peering out. Her face went pale when she saw the numbers, but her hand stayed steady on her rifle. We can't fight 8, she said. No, we can't. Then what we do? Good question. Fighting was suicide. Running meant dying in the snow. Surrendering meant a bullet for him and worse for her. No good options, just degrees of terrible. We make them pay, Asher said, for every inch, every second. We make it so hard they think twice about finishing this. That not plan. That just dying slow. You got a better idea? She didn't answer, because there wasn't one. Below, Vance stopped about 50 yards out, close enough to talk, far enough to be hard to hit. He'd learned from the last encounter. Mr. Blackridge, his voice carried clear in the cold air. I admire your persistence. 3 days through mountain passes in winter. Most impressive. Asher didn't respond. Let Vance talk. Talking meant not shooting. The Baron sends his regards, Vance continued. He's disappointed you didn't take his generous offer, but he's willing to extend it one final time. The documents for your lives, both of you, safe passage out of the territory. You have my word. His word worth nothing, Maylin shouted before Asher could stop her. Vance's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance, maybe, or respect, hard to tell. Miss Lynn, how delightful to hear from you. I trust you've been comfortable these past few days? Go to hell. Eventually, I'm sure, but not today. Vance's tone shifted, became businesslike. Here's the situation. You're surrounded, outnumbered, low on supplies and ammunition.
This cabin won't withstand a sustained assault. You know it. I know it. So let's dispense with theatrics and negotiate like reasonable people. Negotiate? Asher called down. You brought 8 armed men to a negotiation? Insurance, surely you understand the concept. Now, the Baron's offer is bullshit. You kill us the second we hand over those documents. You wound me, Mr. Blackridge. I'm a man of honor. You're a man who murders families for land. Honor's got nothing to do with it. Silence. When Vance spoke again, his voice had gone cold, professional. The pretense of civility stripped away. You're right, he said. Honor doesn't enter into this. Only results. So here's what's going to happen. You have 1 hour to surrender the documents and come out. If you comply, I'll make it quick, clean, no suffering. If you don't, he shrugged. Well, my men are creative, and Miss Lynn is very pretty. I'm sure they'd enjoy the opportunity to get acquainted before the end. Mei Lin's face went white. Her hands trembled on the rifle. Asher's vision went red. Pure rage, hot and immediate, flooding every rational thought. His rifle came up. He found Vance in the sight. 1 shot. Center mass. End this piece of shit right now. Mei Lin's hand on his arm stopped him. No. He wants you angry. Wants you make mistake. She was right. Asher knew she was right, but knowing didn't make the rage go away. He lowered the rifle. Slowly. His jaw so tight it hurt. 1 hour, Vance called. Starting now. The men spread out, taking positions behind trees, rocks, anything that offered cover. Professional. Disciplined. They'd done this before. Asher pulled back from the window. His mind raced, running through scenarios, discarding them as fast as they formed. Fight. They'd be overwhelmed in minutes. The cabin's walls wouldn't stop sustained fire. They had maybe 20 rounds of ammunition between them. 8 men meant 40-plus rounds minimum, probably more. Flee. The back window was barely wide enough for Mei Lin, impossible for Asher. They'd be picked off before they made it 10 yards. Negotiate. Vance had already shown his hand. No deal, no mercy, just death dressed up as civility. Asher. Mei Lin's voice was quiet. Maybe I give them documents. Maybe they let you live. No. You not listen. I say maybe. I said no. He turned to face her. They kill us both either way. At least this way we go down fighting. Fighting for what? We already lose. Maybe. But I'm not dying on my knees. She studied his face, searching for something. Then she nodded. Okay, we fight. But smart, not stupid. Use what we have. Which is? Time, anger, fear. They're not afraid of us. Not yet. She moved to her pack, pulled out the leather folder containing the documents. For a moment, Asher thought she was going to hand them over. Instead, she opened the folder, selected several pages, and moved to the fireplace. What are you doing? Asher asked. Making them angry. She held the papers toward the flames. They want these so bad? I burn them, little by little, until they either leave or do something stupid. That'll just make them attack faster. Good. Angry people make mistakes. We use mistakes. She fed 1 page to the fire. It caught, curled, turned to ash. Outside, someone shouted. They'd seen the smoke, probably, figured out what was happening. Vance's voice sharp with rage. Stop! Stop right now, or we come in shooting. Mei Lin fed another page to the flames. Come in then. See what happened. Asher couldn't help it. He smiled. She was either brilliant or insane, and right now he wasn't sure which mattered more. You're going to get us killed, he said. We already dead. This way, we take something from them first. She had a point. Another page went into the fire, then another. The shooting started. Not a full assault, probing fire, testing their defenses. Bullets punched through the wooden barriers at the windows, splintered the doorframe, sent splinters flying. Asher returned fire. Not to hit, to remind them this wasn't free. Every inch would cost. Mei Lin kept burning papers, methodical, deliberate, each page a calculated insult. Cease fire! Vance's voice, furious now. Cease fire, you idiots! She's destroying them! The shooting stopped.
Asher used the pause to reload, check their position. The cabin was holding so far, but it wouldn't last. Already he could see daylight through new gaps in the walls. "This is insanity," Vance shouted. "You're burning the only thing keeping you alive." "Then you should have been nicer," Mei Lin called back. Despite everything, Asher laughed. Actual laughter, inappropriate and ridiculous, and perfectly timed. Mei Lin glanced at him, surprised. Then she smiled too, small, quick, but real. "We're going to die," Asher said. "Probably. You okay with that?" She considered the question seriously. "Better than live as slave. Better than run forever." "Yeah, I can understand that." More shooting, sustained this time. The men were getting desperate, trying to overwhelm their defenses through sheer volume of fire. A bullet caught the woodpile Asher was using for cover, exploding bark and splinters. He felt something hot along his ribs. Not a hit. Close enough. He fired back, twice. Heard someone curse. Maybe a hit, maybe not. Mei Lin burned another document. "How many left?" Asher asked. 10 pages? Maybe 12? "Make them last." "Why?" "Because while you're burning, they're not thinking straight. And when people stop thinking, they make mistakes." As if to prove his point, one of Vance's men broke cover. Young, maybe 25, running toward the cabin with his rifle raised. Brave, stupid. Asher's shot took him in the shoulder. The man spun, went down hard, screaming. His companions dragged him back behind cover. More shouting, arguments. 7 now, Mei Lin said. "Maybe 6 if you bleed out." Don't count on it." The assault intensified. They were getting serious now, coordinating fire, trying to create openings for advancement. Asher moved between the two windows, firing, reloading, firing again. His shoulder ached from the rifle's recoil. His hands were steady, but his breathing came hard. Beside him, Mei Lin held her position. She fired less frequently than Asher, but when she did, she made it count. Careful, precise. Her father had taught her well. A bullet punched through the wall near Asher's head. Too close. They were getting better angles. "They're flanking," he said, moving around back. "The window?" "We need to cover it." Mei Lin abandoned her position at the front, moved to the back window, just in time. A face appeared in the opening, saw her, started to raise a pistol. She fired. The face disappeared. A body hit the ground outside. 6, she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless, doing what needed doing, but Asher saw her hands shaking after. Saw the cost. Killing changed you, even when it was necessary, especially when it was necessary. The front door exploded inward. Someone had used an axe, splitting the wood, creating an opening. A hand reached through, trying to work the bar loose. Asher shot through the gap. The hand disappeared, screaming outside. 5, he said. But it was getting harder. They were adapting, learning the cabin's weak points. And Asher's ammunition was running low. Maybe 10 rounds left. Mei Lin had fewer. When those ran out, this became hand-to-hand, and 8 against 2 became impossible. Mei Lin burned another page. The pile was getting thin. "Asher," her voice was quiet. "When paper's done, when bullet's done, what then?" "I don't know." "We should know, should have plan. The plan is survive as long as possible." "That not plan, that just hope." She wasn't wrong. More shooting. Something hit the roof, punched through the sagging wood. Snow and debris rained down. They were going to bring the whole structure down. Bury them in rubble. Asher's mind raced. There had to be something, some way to... Thunder. Distant. Rolling. But not from the sky. Hoofbeats. Many. Coming fast. Everyone heard it. The shooting stopped. Confusion rippled through Vance's men. "What the hell?" someone shouted. Asher moved to the window, risked a look. Through the trees, riders. A dozen at least. Maybe more. They came like a storm, horses at full gallop despite the snow. And Asher knew them. The lead rider was massive, dark-skinned, with a beard that reached his chest. Samuel Bull Morrison, trapper and guide. Asher had pulled him from a frozen river 8 years back, kept him alive through pneumonia that should have killed him. Beside him rode a woman, small but fierce, with red hair and more knives than seemed reasonable for one person. Kate Red Sullivan. Asher had defended her claim when claim jumpers tried to take it by force. Behind them, others. Men and women Asher had helped over the years. Small things, mostly. A meal when they were starving, shelter during a storm, information that saved their lives, debts that apparently hadn't been forgotten. They hit Vance's position like an avalanche. No warning, no negotiation, just violence, sudden and overwhelming. Gunfire erupted. Not the careful, measured shots of a siege, the chaos of a cavalry charge. Vance's men broke. Some tried to fight, others ran. None of them had expected this. Bull Morrison rode down one man, his horse's hooves crushing the man's rifle. Red put a knife in another's shoulder before he could raise his pistol. It was brutal, efficient, over in seconds. Vance tried to rally them. "Form up! Form!" Bull's fist caught him mid-sentence. Vance went down hard, blood pouring from his nose. When he tried to rise, Red's boot planted on his chest. "Stay," she said, like he was a dog. Asher stood in the cabin doorway, rifle lowered, not quite believing what he was seeing. Bull dismounted. He was bigger than Asher remembered, or maybe Asher had just forgotten what other humans looked like at full size. "Asher Blackridge." Bull's voice was deep, resonant. "Heard you needed help. How did you—" "Word travels. Mountain folk talk. When we heard the Baron's men were hunting you," he shrugged. "Figured we owed you." "You don't owe me anything." "The hell we don't." Red moved forward, her green eyes sharp. "You saved half our lives at one point or another. We don't forget that." Around them, the others were securing Vance's men, tying them up, disarming them. Efficient, like they'd done this before. Maylin appeared in the doorway beside Asher. She looked at the scene, the riders, the subdued men, the sudden reversal of fortune, like she couldn't process it. Who are they?" she asked. "Friends," Asher said. He wasn't sure he'd ever used that word before, not in 15 years. "I think they're friends." Bull's eyes moved to Maylin. "This the girl? The one the Baron's after?" "Her name's Maylin." "What'd she do?" "Stole documents proving he's been murdering families for their land." Bull grunted. "About time someone did." Red knelt beside Vance. She grabbed his hair, forced his head up. "You tell the Baron something for us. Tell him the mountain folk don't take kindly to tyrants. Tell him if he sends more men, we'll send them back in pieces. Understand?" Vance spat blood. "You're all dead. You know that? He'll—" Red's knife appeared at his throat. "I asked if you understand." Vance went very still. "I understand." "Good." She released him, stood. "Tie them up. We'll drop them halfway down the mountain. Let them walk back with a message." Asher descended from the cabin. His legs felt weak. Adrenaline crash, probably. Or just disbelief. Bull met him at the bottom. They stood facing each other. Two men who'd once been strangers, now something else. "Thank you," Asher said. The words felt inadequate. "Don't." Bull shook his head. "You pulled me from that river, kept me breathing when I wanted to quit. This doesn't even start to balance that debt." "There's no debt." "Then call it friendship, or solidarity, or just the right thing." Bull glanced at the cabin, at the bullet holes and damage. "You can't stay here." "I know. Come with us. We've got a settlement, 20 miles north, remote, defensible. The Baron's reach doesn't extend that far, not yet." Asher looked back at Maylin. She stood in the doorway watching, waiting for him to decide. He'd been alone for 15 years. Had convinced himself he preferred it. That solitude was safety, but maybe solitude was just another word for hiding. "We'd be putting you in danger," Asher said. "We're already in danger. Baron's been pushing north for months, taking land, making threats. This was coming whether you're there or not." Bull's expression hardened. "Besides, we're tired of running. Tired of letting men like Drake decide who gets to exist and who doesn't. You're talking about war." "No, I'm talking about drawing a line, saying this far and no further." Bull extended his hand. "Question is, you with us?" Asher looked at that offered hand, looked at the men and women securing Vance's crew. Looked at Red, who'd already saved his life once today. Looked at Maylin, who'd chosen to fight instead of surrender. Some choices were bigger than survival, bigger than safety. Some choices were about who you wanted to be when the dust settled. Asher took Bull's hand. Yeah, I'm with you. Bull's grip was firm, final. Then let's get moving. Storm's coming, and I'd rather be home before it hits. They worked fast, stripped Vance's men of weapons, supplies, anything useful. Left them tied, but alive. Though from the looks on their faces, they might have preferred death to walking back and explaining this failure to the Baron. Vance himself said nothing, just stared at Asher with eyes full of cold promise. This wasn't over. They both knew it. But for today, they'd won. Red helped Mei Lin onto a spare horse. The smaller woman moved with stiff pride, refusing assistance beyond the bare minimum. You ride decent? Red asked. Decent enough? Good. Stay close. Snow's deep and the trail's narrow. Fall behind, you're on your own. I not fall behind, Red grinned. I like her. Asher mounted Slate. The horse looked as tired as he felt, but game for another journey. Always game. Bull took the lead. The others formed a loose column, experienced riders who knew how to move through mountain terrain. As they rode away, Asher glanced back once. The cabin was a ruin. Smoke still rose from the fireplace. The walls were pocked with bullet holes. It looked like a place where people had died. They almost had. Don't look back, Bull called. Only way forward now. Asher turned away. Bull was right. The past was ashes. The future was uncertain. But for the first time in 15 years, he wasn't facing it alone. They rode north. The snow started falling before they'd gone a mile, thick, heavy flakes that reduced visibility to yards. But Bull knew the way, moved with the confidence of a man who'd traveled these paths 1,000 times. Mei Lin rode near Asher, her horse staying close to Slate. She didn't speak, just held on, her face set with determination. Around them, the mountains loomed, vast, indifferent, beautiful in their cruelty, but also sheltering, protecting. For those who knew how to read them, they offered safety that no town or territory could match. Hours passed. The storm intensified, but they kept moving, pushing through drifts, navigating around obstacles, maintaining a pace that balanced speed with survival. As darkness fell, lights appeared ahead. Warm, welcoming. The settlement. It was bigger than Asher expected. Maybe 30 buildings, clustered in a valley protected by ridges on 3 sides. Smoke rose from chimneys. Lamplight glowed in windows. People emerged as they rode in. Curious faces, cautious but not hostile. Bull dismounted in front of what looked like a communal hall. Welcome to Last Stand. Name's a bit dramatic, but it fits. Last Stand? Asher said. Because this is where we stop running, where we make the Baron understand he can't have everything. Bull's expression was serious. You're part of that now, both of you. Ready for what that means? Asher looked at Mei Lin. She'd dismounted, was standing with her back straight despite obvious exhaustion. She met his eyes, nodded once. Ready. Yeah, Asher said. We're ready. Bull clapped him on the shoulder. Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow we plan. The Baron won't wait long to respond to what happened today. They were shown to a small cabin. 2 rooms, sparse but clean. A fire already laid, ready to light. Mei Lin collapsed onto a chair the moment they were alone. Her hand shook as she removed her gloves. We alive, she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. Yeah. Your friends, they save us. They did. Why? They not know me? Because I knew them. And because they understand what the Baron is, what he does. Asher moved to light the fire. And because sometimes people surprise you. The kindling caught. Flames grew, spreading warmth into the cold room. Mei Lin watched the fire for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. My whole life, I trust no one. Everyone who help, they want something, always want something. Maybe these folks are different. Maybe. She looked at him. You different. You help me. Ask nothing. I'm not that noble. I couldn't leave you there. That make you noble. Asher shook his head. That makes me stubborn. There's a difference. She smiled, small, tired, but genuine. Stubborn saved my life. I take it. They sat in companionable silence, watching the fire grow. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, for the first time in days, they were warm, safe. Temporarily, maybe. But right now, temporary was enough. Asher? Mei Lin's voice was drowsy, the warmth and exhaustion catching up to her. Yeah? Thank you for everything. You already said that. I say again, need to. He didn't know how to respond to that, so he just nodded. She was asleep within minutes, curled in the chair like she didn't trust beds, like she expected to need to run at any moment. Asher stayed awake longer, watching the fire, listening to the storm, processing everything that had happened. They'd survived. Against impossible odds, they'd survived. But Bull was right. This was just the beginning. The Baron wouldn't forget, wouldn't forgive. War was coming, real war. Not skirmishes and desperate last stands, but organized conflict between those who had power and those who refused to kneel. Asher had spent 15 years avoiding exactly this. Staying out of fights, keeping his head down. Now he was in the middle of one. And the strange thing was, he didn't regret it. He looked at Mei Lin sleeping in the firelight. Small, fragile looking, but with a core of steel that most men would envy. She'd lost everything. Family, home, safety. But she hadn't broken, hadn't surrendered. That mattered, more than he could put into words. Outside, the storm raged. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Planning, preparing, figuring out how to stand against an empire. But tonight, they were alive. Fed. Warm. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Asher Blackridge wasn't alone. He added more wood to the fire, settled into the other chair, and let his eyes close. Sleep came easier than it had in years. Morning came with the kind of clarity that only followed storms. The sky was pale blue, almost white, and the snow had stopped falling. Everything looked clean, new, like the world had decided to start over. Asher woke to voices outside. Not threatening, conversational. The sound of a settlement coming to life. Chopping wood. Children laughing. Someone calling instructions about feed for livestock. Normal sounds. The kind he'd forgotten existed. Mei Lin was already awake, standing at the window, watching the activity outside with an expression Asher couldn't quite read. Wonder, maybe. Or wariness. Probably both. You sleep? She asked without turning. Some. You? Little bit. Keep thinking they come, attack while we sleep. They didn't. Not yet. She wasn't wrong to be cautious. Safety was temporary. Always had been. A knock at the door, Bull's voice, rough but not unkind. You two decent? Got breakfast and bad news. Figure you need both. Asher opened the door. Bull stood there holding a tray with bread, dried meat, and something that smelled like actual coffee. Behind him, Red leaned against the porch rail, cleaning her nails with one of her many knives. Bad news first, Asher said, taking the tray. Baron sent riders, showed up at the southern checkpoint at dawn, 3 of them, carrying a message. Bull's expression was grim. He wants the documents, wants the girl, and he wants you dead. In that order. What's he offering in exchange? Nothing. It's not an offer, it's a demand. We have 48 hours to comply, or he brings an army. He's bluffing. Maybe, maybe not. Red spoke up, still focused on her nails. Word is he's been recruiting, hiring every gun he can find, building something bigger than just land grabs. How big? 50 men, maybe more. Enough to take the settlement by force if he wants. Asher set the tray down. His appetite had vanished. You're telling me we brought war to your doorstep. No, Bull said firmly. War was already coming. You just gave us a reason to stop pretending otherwise. That's a generous way to look at it. It's the truth. Baron's been pushing north for months, taking land bit by bit, testing how far he can go before we push back. Bull's jaw tightened. We were going to have this fight eventually. Better to have it now, on our terms, than wait until he's strong enough to crush us without trying. Mei Lin had turned from the window. You not have to fight. I go. Give him documents. Give him me. You stay safe. No, Asher said. You not decide for... I said no. He looked at Bull. She's not going anywhere. Bull studied them both, then nodded. Good. Because we already made our choice too. Last night, after you went to sleep, we took a vote. Settlement's unanimous. We fight. You can't fight an army with farmers and trappers, Asher said. Why not? We know this terrain, we know when to stir, and we're fighting for our homes, not for a paycheck. Red finally looked up from her knife. Besides, we're not just farmers and trappers. Half the people here are former soldiers, claim jumpers who went straight, outlaws looking for a fresh start. We know how to handle ourselves. Against 50 professional guns? Against whatever comes. Bull's voice had gone hard. We draw the line here. No more running, no more letting men like Drake take what they want because they've got money and we don't. Asher wanted to argue, wanted to point out the reality, that idealism didn't stop bullets, that courage without strategy was just dying with conviction. But he looked at Bull's face, at Red's, and saw something he recognized. The same thing he'd seen in Mei Lin when she chose to steal those documents knowing it might kill her, the decision to stop being prey. All right, Asher said. Then we need a plan, and it better be a damn good one. They gathered in the communal hall an hour later, 23 people representing every household in Last Stand. More women than Asher expected. More age diversity, too, from a kid who couldn't be more than 16 to an old man who'd probably seen 70 winters. This was what they had. Not an army, a community. Bull stood at the front, Asher and Red flanking him. Mei Lin sat to the side, the documents in her lap, visible to everyone. You all know why we're here, Bull began. Baron Drake wants what she's holding, wants her dead, wants Asher dead, and wants us to hand them over like we're his servants. Murmurs of anger rippled through the crowd. We voted last night to refuse, to fight if necessary. But before that fight comes, everyone deserves to know what we're fighting for. He gestured to Mei Lin. Tell them. She stood slowly. Her hands trembled, whether from fear or cold, Asher couldn't tell. But her voice was steady when she spoke. My name Mei Lin. My family have small farm. Not much, but honest. We work hard, pay all fees, obey all law. Her English was broken, but everyone understood. Baron Drake want our land. Say we not pay tax. But we pay. We have proof. Papers. Everything legal. She held up one of the documents. Baron send men. Say we leave or die. My father refuse. Say he show proof to judge. Her voice cracked. Just slightly. They kill him that night. Make it look like accident. Then kill my mother, my brother, burn farm, take land. The room had gone completely silent. I take these. She lifted the folder. Proof he do same to many family. 20, maybe 30. All dead. All land now belong to Baron. Her eyes swept the room. He not stop. He take and take until nothing left. Until we all dead or slave. She sat down. The silence stretched. Then the old man spoke. His voice was rough with age, but clear. I knew the Garrett family. Thomas Garrett and his kin. Good people. Died under suspicious circumstances 5 years back. Baron took their land too. And the Johnsons, a woman added. And the Chen family before them. More voices. More names. A litany of the dead, all connected by one thread. Baron Magnus Drake. Bull let them talk for a minute. Then he raised his hand. So here's the question. We can give him what he wants. Hand over the girl and the documents. Hope he leaves us alone after. He won't, someone called out. Probably not, Bull agreed. Or we can fight. Use those documents. Get them to a judge who isn't bought. Expose what Drakes have been doing. Maybe stop him legal before this becomes a war. And if the legal route doesn't work, Red asked, then we make it work the other way. Bull's expression was hard. But we try law first, because if we don't, we're no better than him. Asher spoke up. There's a territorial judge in Ridgewood, 3 days' ride east, Judge Harrison. He's got a reputation for being honest, stubborn. If anyone would hear this case, it's him. You know him? Bull asked. Knew his son. Served with him before. Asher trailed off. Before the war, he'd almost said. Before everything went to hell. He owes me a favor. Or did, 15 years ago. Might still count for something. It's worth trying, Bull said. He looked at the crowd. We send a delegation. Small. Fast. Get those documents to Judge Harrison. Let him decide if there's enough evidence to bring Drake up on charges. And while we're waiting, someone asked, Drake's not going to sit quiet for 3 days. No, he'll come here. Try to take what he wants by force. Bull's voice hardened. So we prepare. Fortify. Make this settlement a fortress, and we hold until legal help arrives or until we can't hold anymore. How do we defend against 50 men? The question came from the young kid. 16, maybe 17. Too young for this. Red answered. We use the terrain. The passes are narrow. Only 2 ways into this valley. We block them. Force Drake's men into killing zones where numbers don't matter as much. And we make every inch cost them. People will die, the old man said quietly. We understand that, right? This isn't a game. This is war. People are already dying, Maylin said. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the room. My family dead. Many family dead. Only difference is now we fight back. The old man looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Then we fight. A vote followed. Not everyone agreed. 3 families chose to leave, to head deeper into the mountains and wait this out. Bull didn't try to stop them. Freedom meant choosing your own path, even when that path was running. The rest stayed. 20 households, 63 people total, including children, against Baron Drake's army. The next 2 days were chaos, organized chaos, but chaos nonetheless. They fortified the 2 passes into the valley, felled trees to create barriers, dug firing positions into the slopes, set up supply caches with ammunition, medical supplies, food. Asher worked alongside Bull and Red, planning fields of fire, escape routes, fallback positions. Military thinking applied to civilian defense. It felt wrong, but necessary. Maylin helped where she could. She wasn't strong enough for heavy labor, but she had other skills. She helped organize medical supplies, taught some of the women basic first aid she'd learned from her mother, made herself useful because sitting still meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering. On the second night, Asher found her sitting outside the cabin, staring at the mountains. Can't sleep? He asked. Dream bad things. Better stay awake. He sat beside her. The cold bit through his coat, but he didn't move. You don't have to stay. Bull would understand if you wanted to go with those families who left. Where I go? Baron find me anywhere. At least here I fight with people who... She paused, searching for words. Who see me? Not just Chinese girl. Not just thing to own. People who see me. We see you. I know. First time in long time. She was quiet for a moment. You scared? Terrified. You not look scared. I've had practice hiding it. She smiled slightly. Me too. They sat in silence. Above them, stars filled the sky, countless, cold, indifferent. The same stars that had watched over countless other fights, other wars, other moments of human stupidity and courage. Asher? Maylin's voice was soft. If we die, you regret? Regret help me? He thought about it, really thought about it. No, I spent 15 years hiding, surviving, telling myself that was enough. But it wasn't living, it was just not dying. And now? Now I'm fighting for something that matters, for someone who matters. He looked at her. No regrets. She reached out, took his hand. Her fingers were cold, small in his, but her grip was firm. Thank you, she said, for see me, for fight with me, for everything. You already thanked me. I thank again. Need to. They sat like that until the cold became unbearable. Then they went inside, stoked the fire, and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, Asher would leave with Bull and 2 others. They'd make the 3-day ride to Ridgewood, deliver the documents to Judge Harrison, pray that law meant something. And Maylin would stay behind with Red and the settlement, defending their line, holding the pass, trusting that help would come before Drake's army did. The morning of departure came too fast. Asher packed light, supplies for the journey, the documents secured in a waterproof case, his rifle and pistol cleaned and loaded. Maylin helped him prepare in silence. When he was ready, she walked him to where Bull and the others waited with the horses. Red was there too, checking weapons, giving final instructions to the defenders. She looked up as they approached. Keep her safe, Asher said quietly. Keep yourself safe, Red countered. We can hold 3 days, maybe 4. After that, it gets difficult. We'll be back in 3. You better be. Bull swung into his saddle. Time to move. We want to make the first pass before dark.
Asher turned to Mei Lin. She stood there, small against the morning light, trying to look brave and mostly succeeding. Don't die, she said. Same to you. I'm serious. So am I. She stepped forward, wrapped her arms around him. Quick, fierce, then let go before he could respond. Go, before I change mind about staying. Asher mounted Slate. The horse shifted, eager to move after 2 days of rest. He looked back once.
Mei Lin stood watching, red beside her, the settlement behind them. People who'd chosen to stand instead of kneel. Worth fighting for. Worth dying for, if it came to that. Then Bull kicked his horse into motion, and they were riding east toward Ridgewood, toward law and order, and the hope that civilization still meant something. Behind them, Last Stand prepared for war. The ride to Ridgewood took 2.5 days. They pushed hard, stopping only when the horses needed rest. Bull and the other two, a taciturn tracker named Cole and a former cavalry scout named Maria, were good company, efficient, professional. They understood the stakes. Ridgewood was bigger than Cedar Falls, actual civilization, with a courthouse, a marshal's office, and buildings that looked like they'd been there longer than a season. Judge Harrison's office was on the second floor of the courthouse. A clerk tried to stop them, said the judge was busy, but Bull's expression convinced him to reconsider. Judge Harrison was in his 60s with white hair and eyes that had seen too much to be fooled easily. He looked up as they entered, frowned. I'm not hearing any cases today. Come back. He stopped. His eyes found Asher. Blackridge? Asher Blackridge? Judge. I heard you were dead, or might as well be. Close enough to both. Harrison's expression softened slightly. My son spoke of you, before he passed, said you saved his life in the war. He saved mine more times than I saved his. That's not how he told it. Harrison gestured to chairs. Sit. Tell me why you're here. They laid it out. All of it. Mei Lin's story, the documents, the pattern of murders disguised as accidents, the land grabs, Baron Drake's empire built on blood. Harrison listened without interrupting. When they finished, he held out his hand. The documents. Asher handed over the folder. The judge spent an hour reading. His expression grew darker with each page. When he finally looked up, his face was grim. This is extensive, detailed. If it's authentic, this is enough to hang Drake twice over. It's authentic, Asher said. Every page. You're certain? I'm certain people died for it. That makes it authentic enough. Harrison closed the folder carefully. This puts me in a difficult position. Drake has influence, money, friends in territorial government. If I move on this and it falls apart, my career is over. And if you don't move on it? Bull's voice was hard. How many more families die? That's not a fair question. It's the only question that matters. Harrison was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded. You're right. It is. He stood. I'll issue warrants. Drake, his primary enforcer Vance, and any men directly implicated in these documents. I'll also send word to the territorial marshal. This is big enough that it needs federal attention. How long? Asher asked. To issue the warrants? An hour. To execute them? I'll need deputies. Real ones, not local boys who can be bought. That means bringing in marshals from other districts. 2 days? Maybe 3. We don't have 3 days. Drake's planning an assault on Last Stand. They're defending with 60 people against an army. Harrison's expression tightened. Then I suggest you ride back fast. I'll send what support I can, but the law moves at its own pace. The law's too slow to save lives, Maria said quietly. Perhaps, but it's all we have that separates us from barbarism. Harrison met her eyes. I'll do everything in my power to help, but I can't promise miracles. It wasn't enough, but it was something. They left within the hour. Harrison's warrants were official, real legal authority to arrest Baron Drake and his men. But paper didn't stop bullets. The ride back was harder. Urgency drove them, cutting rest short, pushing the horses to their limits. They made the return trip in 2 days instead of 2.5. But 2 days felt like forever when you didn't know if the people you cared about were still alive. They crested the final ridge at sunset on the second day. Below, Last Stand should have been visible. Smoke from chimneys, lights in windows. Instead, they saw flames. The settlement was under attack. Even from a distance, Asher could see the chaos. Men moving between buildings. Gunfire, sporadic but constant. Smoke rising from multiple sources. Drake hadn't waited. He'd brought his army, and he'd brought it now. "We're too late," Cole said quietly. "No." Bull's voice was hard. "We're exactly on time. They're still fighting. That means we can still help." They descended at a reckless pace, horses sliding on loose stone, branches whipping past. Caution meant nothing. Speed was everything. As they got closer, details emerged. The attackers had breached the southern pass. The barriers had been overcome. But they hadn't taken the settlement. The defenders were holding house to house, turning every building into a fortress. Bull led them to the northern approach. Less defended because Drake's forces were concentrated south. They rode straight into town. Someone shouted, a warning or a welcome, Asher couldn't tell. They dismounted, grabbed weapons, and ran toward the sound of fighting. Red met them at the communal hall, blood on her sleeve, soot on her face. "About damn time!" "Status?" Bull demanded. "They hit us yesterday morning. 50, maybe 60 men. Came hard and fast. We held the South Pass for 6 hours before they broke through." She reloaded her pistol with practiced efficiency. "Since then, it's been hell. We're down to 40 people who can still fight. Lost 8. Another 6 too wounded to continue." "Mei Lin?" Asher's heart hammered. "Alive, fighting at the eastern barricade. Girl's got a gift for not dying." Red's expression was grim. "But we can't hold much longer. We're almost out of ammunition, out of options." "We brought legal authority," Bull said. "Judge Harrison issued warrants for Drake and his men." "That's great. You want to serve them while they're shooting at us?" "Fair point." Bull looked at Asher. "We need to find Drake. End this at the source. He'll be commanding from the rear. That's his style. Lets his men do the dying while he watches. Then we push through, find him, and we give him a choice. Surrender under legal authority or die like the tyrant he is." It wasn't a great plan, but it was the only one they had. They moved through the settlement, joining the defenders pushing back against Drake's forces. The fighting was brutal, close quarters, personal. The kind where you saw the face of the man you killed. Asher had done this before. In the war, in skirmishes, in moments when survival required violence. But it never got easier, never became routine. He killed 3 men reaching the eastern barricade. Quick, efficient, necessary. Each death another weight he'd carry. Mei Lin saw him coming. Her face lit up. Surprise, relief, something else. She was bleeding from a cut on her forehead, her clothes torn, but she was alive. That was enough. "You came back," she said. "I said I would." "People say many things. I'm not people." Despite everything, she smiled. Around them, the tide was turning. Bull's arrival had brought fresh fighters, fresh ammunition, fresh hope. Drake's men were faltering, realizing this wasn't going to be the easy victory they'd expected. Then a voice cut through the chaos, amplified, commanding. "Cease fire! All forces, cease fire!" The shooting stuttered, stopped. An eerie quiet descended. Baron Magnus Drake rode into view, alone, unarmed or appearing to be. He sat his horse like a king surveying conquered territory. "I'm tired of this," he called out. "Tired of wasting good men on stubborn fools. So here's my final offer. Give me the girl and the documents. Everyone else lives. You have my word." "Your word's worth nothing," Red shouted. "Perhaps, but it's all I'm offering." Drake's eyes found Asher. "Mr. Blackridge, surely you see the mathematics. 1 life. A foreign girl who means nothing. Against everyone here, it's simple." "Nothing about this is simple," Asher said. He stepped forward into the open, where Drake could see him clearly. "And your word isn't the only one that matters." He pulled out the folded warrant. "By order of Judge Harrison, Territorial Court, you're under arrest. You and every man who's committed murder under your orders." Drake actually laughed. "Arrest? You think a piece of paper frightens me?" "No, but it makes this legal." Asher's voice hardened. "Surrender now, face trial, and maybe you live. Keep fighting, and I'll kill you myself. Your choice." Drake's smile faded. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Asher raised his rifle. "Test me." Silence. Drake's men were watching, waiting for his signal. The defenders were ready, weapons aimed. One word from Drake, and this became a massacre. One word from Asher, and it became an execution. The moment stretched, infinite, terrible. Then hoofbeats, many, coming from the east. Riders appeared, 20 of them, wearing marshals' badges, led by an older man with gray hair and a face that had seen everything twice. "Baron Magnus Drake," the man called out. "I'm Marshal James Conroy, Territorial Authority. I'm here to execute warrants for your arrest on charges of murder, land fraud, and conspiracy. Surrender yourself and your men immediately." Drake's face went white, then red. "This is absurd. I'm a respected businessman. You can't—" "I can, and I am. Get off that horse. Now." For a long moment, Drake didn't move. Asher could see him calculating, weighing options. Run? Fight? Surrender? Then his shoulders sagged, just slightly, but enough. He dismounted, raised his hands. "My men were following my orders," he said. "This is on me. Let them go." "That'll be for a jury to decide," Marshal Conroy said. His deputies moved in, disarming Drake's forces, separating them, taking control of the situation with practiced efficiency. It was over. Just like that. No final dramatic confrontation. No last-minute heroics. Just law, arriving late, but arriving nonetheless. Drake was shackled, led away, his empire collapsing with each step. Asher lowered his rifle. His hands were shaking, adrenaline finally catching up. Mei Lin appeared at his side. She didn't say anything, just stood there, watching Drake disappear. "It's over," Asher said. "Is it?" "The fighting is. The rest, we'll see." Around them, Last Stand's defenders were emerging from cover. Wounded, exhausted, but alive. Bull approached, gripped Asher's shoulder. "You did it. We did it, all of us." "Semantics." Bull smiled, tired but genuine. "What matters is it's done." The days that followed were a blur. Treating wounded, burying dead, rebuilding what had been destroyed. The marshals stayed, taking statements, building the case against Drake. Judge Harrison arrived personally, reviewing evidence, ensuring everything was documented properly. The trial would be in territorial court. Drake would face every charge. Justice, slow but inevitable. Mei Lin's testimony was crucial. She stood in front of Harrison, in front of the marshals, and told her story. All of it, without crying, without breaking. When she finished, Harrison looked at her with something like respect. "You're very brave," he said. "Not brave, just tired of run." Sometimes those are the same thing. The trial would take months, maybe longer, but the outcome seemed certain. The documents were damning, the evidence overwhelming. Baron Magnus Drake's empire was finished. 3 weeks after the siege, Asher stood on the ridge overlooking Last Stand. The settlement had recovered faster than he'd expected. New buildings rising where old ones had burned. People working together, rebuilding, footsteps behind him. He didn't turn, knew who it was from the rhythm of her walk. "You leaving?" Mei Lin asked. "Thinking about it." "Why?" "Because this isn't my place. These aren't my people. They're your friends. They fight for you." They fought for what was right. Different thing. She was quiet for a moment. Then she moved beside him, looking out at the same view. "Where you go?" she asked. "Don't know. Somewhere quiet, somewhere I can just be." "Alone?" "Probably." "That what you want? Be alone again?" He thought about it. For 15 years, alone had been safety, had been all he'd known. But something had changed. In that alley in Cedar Falls, when he'd found a dying woman clutching frozen bread, or maybe in the cabin when she'd stood beside him against impossible odds, or in the moments between, when trust had been built in inches instead of miles. "I don't know what I want," he admitted. "I know what I want." She turned to face him. "I want go with you, wherever you go. Not because I scared, not because I need protect, because I choose it, choose you." "Mei Lin, you say people surprise you. You surprise me. You good man, Asher Blackridge. Stubborn, difficult, but good." She took his hand, the same way she had that night before he'd left for Ridgewood. "I spend whole life alone, fighting alone, running alone. tired of alone.
What are you saying?
I want be with you. Build something new, not farm, not empire, just
Life together.
Asher looked at her, really looked at her, small, strong, scarred in ways that didn't show on skin. She'd lost everything and chosen to keep fighting. She'd chosen him. When she could have chosen safety, could have stayed in last stand, built a life with people who understood her pain. Instead, she was offering to walk into uncertainty. Together. He'd spent 15 years convinced he was better off alone. That trust was weakness. That caring made you vulnerable. But looking at Mei Lin, he realized isolation hadn't made him strong. It had just made him survive. Living required something else, required risk, required letting someone see you, scars and all, and hoping they'd stay anyway. "All right," he said. "All right? Yeah. We'll go together. Find somewhere quiet, build something that's ours." Her smile was like sunrise, bright,
Unexpected. Beautiful. You not regret? She asked. Probably, but I'll regret it with you, so it won't be so bad.
She laughed, actually laughed. The sound was so pure, so unexpected that Asher found himself smiling too. They stood there for a while, watching Last Stand come back to life. Then they walked back down together to pack what little they had, to say goodbyes, to start something new. Bull met them at the cabin. He didn't look surprised. "You're leaving," he said. "Not a question." "Yeah." "Where to?" "West, maybe? Oregon. Somewhere we can disappear." Bull nodded. "You'll be missed, both of you." "You'll be fine without us." "Maybe, but it won't be the same." Bull extended his hand. "Thank you for everything, for giving us a reason to fight, for proving it could be won." Asher took his hand. "Thank you for showing up when it mattered." "Debts paid then?" "Debts paid." Red appeared, carrying a saddlebag. "Supplies. Food, ammunition, some money. Not much, but enough to get started somewhere new." "You don't have to." "I know, I'm doing it anyway." She looked at Mei Lin. "You take care of him. He's stupid, but he means well." "I know," Mei Lin said. "I take care." "And you," Red pointed at Asher, "you be good to her, or I'll track you down and we'll have words." "I believe you." They left the next morning, early, before most of the settlement woke. A few people came to see them off, families they'd fought beside, children they'd helped protect. Marshal Conroy was there too. He handed Asher an envelope. "Judge Harrison wanted you to have this. Official pardon for your conviction. Says the evidence was tainted, the trial invalid. You're a free man, Mr. Blackridge." Asher stared at the envelope. 15 years. 15 years carrying that weight. And now it was gone. Just like that. "Thank you," he managed. "Don't thank me. Thank her." Conroy nodded at Mei Lin. "She's the one who exposed the truth. About everything." They rode out as the sun rose, turning the snow-covered mountains gold. Behind them, Last Stand grew smaller, until it was just another cluster of buildings in a vast wilderness. Ahead, the future waited. Uncertain. Unknown. But they rode toward it together. They traveled for 2 months, west like Asher had suggested. Through mountain passes and river valleys, across plains that stretched forever under endless sky. They stopped in small towns, worked odd jobs when money ran short. Asher found work as a ranch hand, a carpenter, a guide. Mei Lin cooked, cleaned, did whatever paid. They saved, planned, looked for the right place, found it in a valley in eastern Oregon, small, remote, with good water and timber and soil that might grow something if you worked it right. They built a cabin, not large, just enough for 2 people and whatever future they decided to make. It took a season. Hard work, blistered hands, days when progress was measured in inches. But when it was done, it was theirs, built together, earned together. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset paint the valley in shades of red and gold, Mei Lin spoke. "You happy?" she asked. Asher thought about it. Happy wasn't a word he'd used much. Wasn't sure he knew what it meant anymore. But sitting here, in a place they'd built with their own hands, with someone who'd chosen to stay despite knowing all his flaws. "Yeah," he said. "I think I am." "Me too." She leaned against him. He put his arm around her, natural, easy, like they'd been doing it for years instead of months. You think they okay? Bull and Red and others, she asked. They're fine. Probably expanding Last Stand, making it bigger, better. You miss it? Sometimes. But this is better. Why? Because it's ours, not borrowed, not temporary, ours. She nodded. Understanding. They sat until dark fell and stars emerged. The same stars that had watched over them through everything, through violence and fear and moments when death had seemed certain. Now those stars watched over something else, something quieter, smaller, but no less important. Two people who'd lost everything found each other and decided that was enough. Not a perfect ending. They still had nightmares, still flinched at sudden sounds, still carried scars that would never fully heal, but they carried them together. And that made all the difference. Because the truth Asher had learned, the one Mei Lin had taught him without meaning to, was that strength wasn't about being unbreakable. It was about breaking and choosing to rebuild anyway. It was about looking at someone else's broken pieces and saying, I'll help you carry those, and you can help me carry mine. It was about trust, not the naive kind that ignored danger, the earned kind that survived testing. It was about choosing to stand when running was easier, choosing to fight when surrender was safer, choosing to live when survival was all you'd known. The world was still brutal. Baron Drake was in prison, but there were others like him. Men who took what they wanted and called it progress, who crushed the weak and called it natural order. But there were also people like Bull and Red, like the defenders of Last Stand, like Mei Lin and Asher, people who drew lines, who said no, who built something worth protecting and protected it, not because it was easy, but because it mattered. That was the lesson. The one Asher would carry for whatever years he had left. That one person couldn't change the world, but they could change one life. And sometimes one life was world enough. He looked at Mei Lin, sitting beside him in the gathering dark. She'd changed his world, completely, irrevocably. And he'd changed hers. That was enough, more than enough. It was everything. The stars wheeled overhead, the night deepened. And in a small cabin in a remote valley, two people who'd been strangers began the long work of becoming something more. Not perfect, never perfect, but real, and chosen, and theirs. And in the end, that was the only kind of happy ending that mattered.